And without further ado, we are getting set for what the fans see on their screen right now. That is Ian Nepomniachtchi versus Levon Aronian, Speed Chess Championship. With me here is the one and only Anna Rudolph as we get set to start things off. Anna, how excited are you for this one?
Super excited, and I love your accent, Danny. That Nepomniachtchi was perfect.
I do my best to try to pronounce things as they should be pronounced, but let's do our best to remind the fans of what they're watching. As we head over to our reminder that the bracket continues and the Speed Chess Championship rages on. We already have Wesley So, Sasha Grishuk, Hikaru Nakamura, and Sergei Karyakin having moved on to the next round. Today we have Levon Aronian and Nepomniachtchi. Who do you think is going to move on, Anna?
I think 2017 has been the year of Levon Aronian. I'm expecting to win this, although Nepomniachtchi is clearly a blitz and bullet expert. I haven't seen much of Levon playing online, so that is a handicap for him.
Yeah, I have the same thoughts that I wonder how much Levon plays online. I feel like Nepomniachtchi, I've seen him more on our site, and plus as a bullet, at least he's been known as a bullet specialist. I wonder what the fastest time control will bring. And let's remind everybody exactly what that format is as we speak about the time controls. We start with 90 minutes of the 5-2 Blitz. We move into 60 minutes of 3-2, and then a half an hour of bullet chess with Chess 960 games being mixed in. The players are competing for a ton of prizes, but really the biggest prize at this point, this early in the bracket challenge, is just to move on. A lot of money at stake, but of course the big thing is that they want to move on to the next round. And before we move on, and as the games get started here, we want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors. Masterclass, of course, becoming the headlining sponsor of the 2017 Speed Chess Championship. And a quick word from them on everything they can expect, everything fans can expect if they sign up for the Masterclass the chess series coming out by Garry Kasparov.
Check. Chess is a game of unlimited beauty, but it's not just checks and attacks. You have to be creative. I'm here to share with you my knowledge of the game of chess. But I'm trying to come up with the comprehensive picture that will be helpful for you to become a better chess player and even a better decision maker. Let's cover it. King g5, king c2, king f6, king b3, king e7, king c4, king d6, king b5, king c7, king a6. Boom. White lost, yes? Queen takes, then knight f5, and it's a double attack. Skewer and attraction, and it's mate. What an amazing mate. How can we prevent this rook from stopping our pawn? Let's pause, stop the video, and think. You have time to find this winning combination. Did you see that your bishop was hanging? Why did you have knight c5?
No, I didn't see that line.
That's interesting. So you attack my bishop, and then you protect your bishop.
Right.
So let's go back and see whether we can improve and what's the next logical moves. It's about coming up with new ideas, challenging your own excellence. You find your mistakes, next time you have to do better. I've been thinking about a few ideas that I never used. The one I want to show, it's another sacrifice. I like sacrifices. And it's one of my favorite openings. So just let's have a look. You cannot waste time. Time is precious. If you don't feel that the game can unleash your creative potential, then you're already on the losing side. And it's not about winning or losing, but of course at the end of the day, it's about winning or losing. I'm Garry Kasparov, and this is my masterclass.
And we are ready to go. Love hearing Garry Kasparov talk about his masterclass, but what I love even more is Levon Aronian's Celtic jersey. I've been told he's not just a fan of the Celtics because of the recent Kyrie Irving trade, but a lifelong fan. So the games have started, and it is time to rock.
One c4, is that a surprise, Danny?
No. I don't know. I don't
Actually,
know.
they both play the English very often, so I was expecting the English in almost every game or every second game. But my question would have been to you before they started, if we are going to see their traditional openings in Blitz or something more offbeat.
Well, I think at this point we would think traditional. Levon is thinking and hopefully aware that it is his move, and I assume that he is, and not just lost in following Chess TV chat or something. And there he goes, and we are off. I don't know. I mean, as you said, these players both play the English, and they also both play each other a lot, actually. They just got done competing at the St. Louis Sinkfield Cup as well as the Rapid and Blitz. So pretty big history with these two going at it. I think that makes it even more exciting to have them face off here.
So what we see here is an opening that they have played against each other several times with both colors. And actually at the Sinkfield Cup and St. Louis Blitz and Rapid, we saw in the English opening as well. And it's interesting to see that they know it so well with both colors. Do you remember this Rook H4 by Levon Aronian at the Sinkfield Cup? This
of
super
course.
interesting move. It was funny to see that because Jan was aware of that move as an idea for white because he plays it as white as well. So I'm curious to see who out-prepares who, since they know this opening so well.
Yeah, I agree. And, of course, that game at the Sinkfield Cup was super impressive by Levon, and a great way for him to get started there with a big win as white. In this line, I wonder... the players have been thinking a little bit out of the opening here. It makes me wonder what exactly they're trying to remember. Black has, I think Black has equalized here in the opening, a pretty nice queen in the center. I wonder if this queen is about to head over to h5 and maybe start some sort of attack on the king side, things like knight to g4. Okay, but he decides he's not super thrilled about the idea of this rook sitting on the diagonal to this bishop on a3. So plays rook e8.
I think he's preparing what you said. I like the idea of queen h5, knight g4. It's always good to threaten mate in one.
Never not a fun idea to threaten mate in one. I agree. So, all right. Well, what do you think about this position? Who do we think is better here? We've got e4, which means that I think one of the biggest things Black has to worry about right now is the strike of f4 coming, and whether that leads to some sort of attack in the center with White getting a big pawn storm. But Black is ready.
Yeah, that's why queen h5 was a good idea. So he steps out of f4 and prepares knight g4. The other question is this c5 knight, which could be a very strong piece or a very awkward piece, since it doesn't have many jumps.
Right. Well, here we go. Levon is all in on the attack. Bishop h3 gives up the b7 pawn. Nepo decides I'm not going to take it, plays e5. But don't be surprised if we see, a move like knight g4. At some point, this b7 pawn will be falling. Maybe not right away due to things like knight e3 coming. And we can see on the board that's exactly the kind of line that we're going to be getting into here.
So knight e3 fork is, of course, the clear threat. After capture on h3, queen takes. Knight e3 is still a threat, but now after rook e1, what shall Black do? The b7 pawn is still hanging, and there's no mate on h2. Simply rook d8. I like that move because after knight takes b7, I think he wants to go rook d3, and you sometimes have the idea of sacrificing on g3.
Yeah, it looks like we may get something like that right now. The knight on c5, I wonder if it'll head to b7 or come back to e4 and perhaps head over to g5. We'll see.
Knight e4 is for sure safer, but do we know Nepomniachtchi for playing it safe?
Not really, right? Right up there with the best attackers, at least as far as his reputation goes. All right, e6.
Move, yeah, because he wants to take the initiative by going e6, and after f takes knight e6, it's looking good for White. The question is, does Black have to take this pawn?
Right. I mean, Black has the bind over on the on the h2 square, and that ties the queen down to always being worried about potential threats of checkmate. But White is saying, I don't care about your queen on h3, your knight on g4, because if he can open up the e file, he'll get plenty of his own attacking chances here. Levon has gone into a think, and one of the things that we have to point out always is we first start to notice the separation on the clock, right? Nepomniachtchi is up about a minute and a half over Levon Aronian, which we'll see if that continues to be something that repeats during the 5-minute portion.
Yeah, that's a huge time advantage. The position is very complicated. After f5, Levon allows this e6 pawn to stay alive. That's a passed pawn after e7. If white can push e7, it will be a very dangerous passed pawn. The question is, will black have enough counterplay with something like rook d3?
Yeah, rook d3
I mean,
now,
he can't
of course,
play it until the knight
right.
on c5, so he's trying to chase it away and then play for this idea. But I'm not sure that black's attack is that strong here. It looks like white has everything under control.
Yeah, and I don't see a way to remove the knight from c5, although if b6 is played next, where exactly does the knight go?
Yeah, that's the problem of the c5 knight. If you don't take the b7 pawn, now he went for it.
Yeah, well,
I'm
both players are focused.
d3, but then knight c5 back. I think Jan is doing fine here, unless there will be some crazy tactics that could work after rook d3. Now the knight comes back to c5. I don't think rook takes g3 works with the rook and the queen on the second rank protecting everything. Knight e3, on the other hand, is a threat, so he shall step out of that fork. Yeah, actually, that's the problem. He cannot go knight c5 because knight e3 is a stronger threat.
Yeah, sorry, I'm focused on the position like you said. Okay, bishop c5 is a strong move then. That stops this idea of knight e3, and now we've got...
Oh, but look at the knight on b7. It's kind of trapped. If black had time for rook b8,
right,
this
something
knight
like...
would have nowhere to go.
The problem is this e6 pawn is such a dangerous threat. The moment that rook moves, we have problems. So,
exactly.
Okay, is there any way for black to continue the attack? Would be the question here, without having to without having to let the e pawn run wild. And here we're going to find out. Knight takes h2. The threat of rook takes g3 check following after king h1. Though the main idea is okay, so the rook would hang. Forces white to block, and Levon Aronian is all in on this piece sacrifice here. Seems
he's
worth
threatening to take on g2 and win the queen with rook g6.
Right.
Also, rook h6 is a big threat.
At first glance, we gotta love this sacrifice, right? The knight
do.
has already gotten a couple pawns for the piece. In fact, 3 now that the e6 pawn has fallen. So the question is, if the endgame is forced and black doesn't get to have a checkmate attack, does he have enough? Probably not. So Levon says, I'm not interested in the endgame, and this renews the threat of rook to g6 here, which, as you said, would be pinning the queen to the king. So
I think this is winning for black, since he's got so many threats, 4 pawns for the piece, and the b7 knight is not coming out anyway. This looks like a crushing victory from a position... Oh, maybe I was too early to call it a victory. The queen d5 pin is annoying, so now maybe he has to go for a perpetual.
The rook h6 trick threat is obviously stopped now with the queen pinning the rook, but yeah, there seems to be no way to unpin the rook. Levon just did a little head bob there. I think that might be the I agree this is a draw head bob, and indeed that's what happened. Nothing like the I agree this is a draw head bob, and players rematching each other, and game 1 is in the books. We have a peaceful result to start, but not due to lack of trying, right? A lot of fireworks there with that piece sacrifice by Levon.
It was a very exciting first round game. We did not see this in every match. Usually players started out more slowly, more solid, but they are going for it.
Yeah, well, that's exciting. All right, so what do we have here? We have a Verisov. This is right up my alley. White playing something a little bit offbeat, and here comes the h-pawn again. He's probably reminding Nepo that, I beat you with an aggressive h-pawn push not too long ago. Maybe those nightmares are still there.
I remember Levon's interview with Mike, Chess.com's Mike, and Mike asked him, didn't you say that you don't play bishop f4 anymore because you're disgusted by this bishop f4? And he said, well, not in classical chess. In rapid and blitz, it works.
Rapid and blitz, it works. Okay, well, now he's going back to bishop f4 again. So one of the things here, everybody, with this knight on b5, it's a little bit unorthodox, but the point is that as weird as this looks, the knight on b5 is actually really a thorn for black, and it forces black to put this knight on a6 to make sure that the c7 square is in access. So this is not the normal position you see every day, and not the one you normally would encourage your beginning chess students to play, with white completely neglecting the king and going all in on an attack. Anna, is he going to sacrifice the exchange if Nepo plays knight takes h5? I wonder if he's just going to play rook takes.
I bet he would, yeah. That looks like the kind of move that Levon would love to make.
Yeah, that could be a ton of fun. And
I've just seen Mike saying that he also caught Levon playing bishop f4 in Buckhouse, even in Buckhouse.
Well, let's check out the analysis if he actually does take, and after captures and queen takes, what exactly is Levon's plan? He's down the exchange, but there's attacking chances, things like the bishop coming to d3, h7 is falling. So interesting stuff. Nepo plays bishop d7 and decides, I'm not interested in capturing on h5, and Levon will take the h-file, since now the rook is free to roam, and maybe there's even ideas like bishop h6. I have a hard time not liking white in these positions, but that's because I've always been biased toward completely dubious attacks. So I'm not sure if Levon really has a good enough attack, but when I see the rook open, I see this pony hopping into e5, I start to think that Levon came to play Blitz today. This is a Blitz opening with all kinds of crazy stuff on the board.
He did prepare especially for the Blitz, it seems. And I agree with you that this position looks so nice for white, even strategically speaking. You have this beautiful e5 spot for the knight, as you mentioned. So even the pawn structure is better for white. All he needs to do is develop some pieces.
So one of the questions here for black is always, do I want to play a move like c4 in these weird Veresovs? As much as that's not a move positionally you like, it cuts off the bishop, and therefore for black kind of renews the threat of capturing on b5. Black has a problem here in that it's really hard to untie the queen side. And so you've got the queen committed, you've got the knight committed on a6, and that's one of the things that makes this Veresov such a tricky opening to play against for black, is finding a way to break through after this pony has established itself on b5, because you really want to play pawn a6, but you just can't. The knight's in the way.
I'm surprised that he didn't want to prevent a5, because I was worried about this a5 push for white. Where do you go with the black queen?
Yeah, that's a strong idea, and in fact, I don't know why. Let's back up and see. He didn't do that. He played bishop a5, but what would have happened on a5 queen moves and just taking the a7 pawn? Not sure if Levon...
Or not even taking it, but I felt like the queen was running out of space.
Right. Well, I moved the, with the queen back on d8, maybe, maybe the a7 pawn is free to grab. So, okay, interesting. Levon doesn't go for that. Instead, bishop e5, and now we see the move I was suggesting Nepo was thinking about, which is c4. Again, everybody, that cuts off the bishop's protection of the knight, and it's critical for black to do something, because if he just sits there, we've already seen Levon put the bishop on e5, he's opened up the h-file, he's building up for an attack on the king side. So this is exactly why Nepo has to do something quickly on the queen side.
And there's no more a5. That's the only thing I don't like. After c4, black prevented a5. And there's no direct attack at the moment. Also, the c4 pawn push takes away the d3 square from the bishop, so it's not that easy to develop white's pieces.
Yeah, now we see b3. This is a nice idea. This is something you normally want to try to do when your opponent has expanded in the center like this. But variations we have to start calculating are like bishop takes b5, a takes b5, queen takes c4 takes. And at the end, it seems like black is holding on to the pawn, but at a cost, right? White has the bishop pair, and the light squares are potentially very weak. So I'm not sure if we're going to see Nepo take on b5 with the bishop. What do you think, Anna?
I think he will have to go for something. If he allows simply a normal capture on b3, for instance, c takes, queen takes, or doesn't do anything about the c4 pawn, I think white will be just better. So I would go for some pawn grab. As black, at least you have a pawn up, and then you try to defend yourself.
And I think Nepo agrees with you, so good call. He goes for that line, kind of agrees that I can't just sit on it. So we're getting that exact position we just analyzed, and we'll see how Levon wants to prove his compensation. I feel like this is a position that's tricky for black still, despite the fact that he's held on to the pawn. But that being said, what's White's concrete plan? I mean, am I going to play bishop e2 and castle short and give up on my goals of the h-file? That would seem weird. So what else am I supposed to do here as White?
It's not easy. That's the problem with the c4 pawn. It takes away that square that you needed on d3. Of course, this position should be at least unclear because White has the pair of bishops and very active pieces, but it doesn't look like he's got a clear, direct way of attacking Black's king on g8.
Yeah, I agree. Both players are showing us a little bit of how they're going to be on camera. Nepo having a little bit of a head bob there. He's got some music going. I think both these players plan to listen to music. They asked me that in the pregame show and confirmed that neither one of them had a problem listening to music, so we don't have a problem with it. Nepo's got the streamer's chair, Anna, right? I mean, he's a big Dota fan. A lot of people know that Nepo loves himself some esports, he's a gamer, and that's a chair that chair behind Nepomniachtchi is made for hours and hours of sitting down. So
I think we would need one, Danny.
I need one. The reason I don't have a chair with a back is exactly because the fact that if I had a chair with a back, it would be in the way of you'd be able to see a big old chair behind my shoulders here.
I fear for you. I'm sitting on a very uncomfortable stool just so that you can't see the back of the chair.
No, that's the life of a host. But speaking of hosting, what are we hosting? This is the 2017 Speed Chess Championship. If you're just joining us, brought to you by Masterclass. We are your hosts, Danny Wrench and Anna Rudolph, and we are here for the next several hours to be analyzing games between these two super grandmasters. The winner of this match will move on in our tournament in the bracket and be joining. The winner of this match will be playing Sergei Karyakin. So they already know who waits for them, Anna. And Sergei Karyakin just put on quite an impressive showing at the St. Louis Rapid and Blitz. Not quite as good overall as Levon Aronian, but in the Blitz, he was more than impressive. So this is interesting stuff, and should be fun to see which of these two players moves on. Let's go back to the board here and see what they're thinking about. Levon has gotten his queen out to g4.
Yeah, that's an improvement. Knight d2 he went, and then queen g4.
For sure.
Some direct threats already. Queen e6 and capturing on g6. So Black has to be extremely careful. Queen e6. Yeah. The rook would be hanging on c8 if you play a rook f7. So you either need to protect this c8 rook or somehow protect the e6 square with, I don't know which move, rook c6. Looks a bit weird because then your queen on d5 will be, once again, trapped. Awkward.
So he captures e5, and now after queen e6 check, is White going to be able to pick up the bishop with check? Looks like he will. Levon speeding up, sensing a little bit of his chance to strike here. Looking at the clock, Anna, we have 2 minutes for Aronian, and already down to 30 seconds. Remember, everybody, the time control is 5-2 Blitz. You can see that on your screen now. What does that mean? It means 5 minutes total, but you gain 2 seconds with every move. That's an increment and a very common time control. So if the players are down on time, don't think that he's just going to lose on time, right? Nepomniachtchi, as you can see, only has 33 seconds, but the position is still unclear. What's happening on knight e4 here, Anna? Is that a move that might go win the exchange?
Knight e4 and also pawn to e4. I think those are the two candidate moves that Levon is calculating. He's actually singing or either calculating out loud, but his lips are moving.
Yeah, he's calculating out loud in his head, and let's do some calculating ourselves. So what happens in this position after e4 with the pawn? The knight is pinned to the queen, everybody. That's Anna's point, which is a good one.
And then queen takes e7, rook f7, rook takes h7 is possible there. Oh, but g4 might be even stronger, of course, because g5 is a huge threat and you're not exchanging pieces.
Yeah, interesting. And again, everybody, this knight is still kind of pinned. If you take here to protect the queen, any other knight move would lose the queen. We're going to get exactly that kind of line Anna was just talking about with the rook coming in. So Nepo says, I'm not interested in that, puts the king on g8. But I get the feeling the worst has not been had yet. I think Levon is going to continue to attack here. Here comes queen e6 check. Yep.
And then bishop h3 is possible as well, so this bishop will be active finally.
Right. Well, the rook on c8 is hanging, right? I mean, that's a rook. I mean, and there he goes. He grabs it, right? Okay, that's a rook is a rook. I'm not sure if Nepo just missed that or if he's hoping that queen b2 turns into some kind of surprising counterattack here. He's going to get
I think this is just desperate. Looks desperate.
It seems, right? In fact, even queen takes c4, I was just going to say, and that's probably resign time. No, he doesn't want to yet. Nepo trying to get some of his nerves out of the way, perhaps, and play this one on. Sometimes it's good when you lose a game early, Anna, in a match like this. I mean, having done a lot of them, I think the players like to play it out a little bit. You're nervous, right? And you know there's going to be a long series of games over the next few hours, so maybe play it out a little bit and don't just resign, despite the fact that in a classical game, I think Nepomniachtchi would have resigned on queen takes c8.
Yeah, now they could repeat moves, but I guess with the rook up, that's out of question.
Yeah, not Levon's idea. Maybe now he'll just take a6. Okay, now he plays bishop d3. I'm surprised he didn't just go trade. I mean, you're up a rook, right? Go trade pieces. You could have just played bishop takes a6. All right, but Levon wants more. Queen takes b7. I think Nepo has to play the move knight a6 to b4 here. No, he decides to play a defensive retreat of the knight. But okay, it's just a matter of coordinating, right? I guess the big issue here for Levon, Anna, is that he can't just play king e2 because there's knight c3 in some positions, but maybe now he plays king e2.
Rook c1 first, and then once he can move the king, that's just a great moment to resign.
Right. As soon as this king gets out of the pin by the queen and the pieces are free to start jumping to life, I think we'll see the towel thrown in. Wait a second. Okay, no, he did not blunder that. He's just coordinating. Still, though, Nepo playing it on with no time on the clock, but, you know, now
and
the
no
clock has
rook
been...
on the board.
And no rook on the board. He's down a rook, and he's playing it on. Let's see exactly what the player's facial expressions tell us. I think Nepo, yeah, as we said, he's just kind of trying to play it out a little bit longer. I don't know that he really thinks he can win this, although look at the clock, right? Levon continues to get himself down on time, which is just a little surprising, right?
It is surprising, and they are playing with a different time control than it was in St. Louis, so maybe they are expecting the delay system and its increment.
Right. Yes, that's quite possible.
It's funny that the king can still not go any safer than on e1. But all right, this is just...
It's just a matter of time, right? I mean... At this point, I'm surprised the game has lasted as long as it did, but you got to give Nepo credit for keeping things tricky, and maybe it's a sign to Levon that just because you get a winning position doesn't mean he's going to throw in the towel. Okay, but there you go. I think that was that was a smile, and all right, a little bit of tricks there before I throw in the towel. But with that, we have our first victory.
For Levon Aronian and
decisive game in the match, and it is a win for Levon Aronian. As we can see, he jumps out to a 1.5 half lead in the score. So what do we have here as far as the opening goes?
Another English with c4, e5 setup, which usually Levon plays against the English. And they are playing extremely fast, of course. As we mentioned, they are experts of the English opening with both colors. I'm not expecting any opening novelty, but it's actually interesting to see what variation they choose for Blitz. Because, of course, they know the theory so well, but which position is more tricky? They might favor those variations, even if they are dubious.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the thing about Blitz, as a lot of people say, it's sometimes much more important to be comfortable with the position than whether you believe the position is theoretically the best. Your ability to play quickly, find the plan, and know intuitively what's going on, really important. And you know, I tend to like black again here. I feel like Levon has done well in this English. This knight coming to d4, now he's going to take back with the pawn, most likely, everybody, even though that blocks the bishop, because you normally want to see the rook and the bishop come together on e2. That's called a Marco hop structure, everybody, where the knight hops into d4 and opens up some pressure. So you can make a mental note of that and learn from these two. And I like black's position in these Englishes. Again, maybe I'm biased to the fact that I play these positions as black, not as white. Okay, so now black has to deal with the b7 pawn. He does that with c6. And what's going to be the plan here?
The bishop, because on b6 it's a very poor piece. You would need another diagonal for that bishop.
Right. Yeah, you're right, and that's definitely the drawback to taking on d4 with the pawn, is you've sort of self-imprisoned. But black hopes to sort of unwind long term and have the bishop pair, right?
Yeah, I'm getting some info from Mike. Thanks, Mike, for helping us out all the time with all these stats and infos. That Aronian played with bishop b4, this variation, and not d5 in St. Louis. So they played the 4 knights variation, but not with d5.
Good to know. We'll back up to that position just to show the fans exactly what Mike is saying. The move bishop to b4 was played in St. Louis by Levon Aronian against this very same opponent, right? And again, these two guys have played each other a lot, and so it'll be interesting to see the theory. I think even if you and I are not able to keep up with all the theory during the match, this might be one of the most interesting post-Speed Chess Championship news reports as we show how many times these guys have played these positions. So if you're an English player or curious on an approach to play against the English, these two guys might be about to instruct us on variations that they really like.
That's true. That is very instructive to see, of course, by these two. How about this position? You are an expert of this variation as black, so I'm expecting that.
I like black's idea. I mean, rook e7 is played with exactly the plan we talked about, right? I mean, here black should back up the bishop likely to h5 and then prepare to double on the e-file and continue to be stubborn in the approach, right? The whole idea of black bringing the knight to d4 was exactly so that this trade would happen and that the e-file would open up. But okay, right, as I say that, I'm a little surprised he brings the bishop to e6 rather than h5. And what is his intention now? I think that he may not really be super worried about knight takes e6, yeah, and just play rook e8 with the idea that if white trades on e6, we're still in a position where I think black is kind of in control, probably getting closer and closer to an equal result though with two opposite colored bishops on the board. It just suggests to us that the light squares and the dark squares will lead us to an equal endgame, but we'll see.
Yes, I was also surprised by this bishop e6 move, but it seems like Levon decided that the c5 knight was stronger than any of his bishops.
Yeah, interesting. And b5 is a nice move, right? And the main thing is that you want to open up the diagonal so that your bishop here on g2 is right where it needs to be, and hitting the b7 square. Levon takes and plays c5. Interesting. This is getting close. I feel like the queen side is becoming more of a problem for black because now this bishop on b6 has a hard time moving without maybe white's rook coming into a7 and this pawn on b7 becoming a bit of a target. So I feel like Nepo has gotten through the worst of that middle game, and I start to like the way white has unwound here. This bishop on f3, Anna, does an excellent job of guarding the biggest weakness in this structure, which is the e2 pawn. So I feel like white is doing just fine here.
I also like white, and it happens all the time with opposite colored bishops that if you are active and if you are attacking, then you're basically a piece up because the other bishop cannot defend the squares that you are attacking. So the b7 pawn is a problem, and the question is whether white can actually enter the position, doubling rooks and rook a8.
Yeah, I agree. And here comes rook a4. I like this move again for Nepo. I feel like he's worked his way out of it, and he also did so, Anna, by playing pretty quickly on the clock. I mean, he's got more than 4 minutes still in this position, and just about doubling the time of his opponent. So
playing much faster than Levon, all these games that we have seen.
Except the game he lost, right? I mean, last game he was under time pressure, and we always talk about that with players at this level, that pretty much the person who's up on time is usually also the person who has a better position, or at least has had a better feel for the position, although that, of course there are some exceptions to that. Okay, well, interesting now as far as total time. Remind everybody we have an hour left total for 5-minute chess. So the party is just getting started, and we will see a lot more instructive games. The 5-minute portion, my personal favorite doing a lot of these matches, because it's the time where we actually get to kind of enjoy, the most high-quality chess normally. Although we've seen some pretty high-quality 3-minute chess too. But all right, Nepo is really unwinding here now, and I mean, as you can see, he's got the rooks on the a file. The e2 pawn has become a complete non-issue with this bishop taking care of defense, and I like white. Now, I mean, white had winning chances. I don't know. I mean, how do we infiltrate, right? You can't come to the a7 square as long as the bishop's here, and black doesn't want to go to e2 as long as the bishop's here. So what's the plan? How do we wiggle in here for white? Here comes the queen trying to come to d5.
Yeah, I guess what Jan is doing is just to improve his position little by little. Even if it's not a winning position, it's much more comfortable for him, and he can do whatever he wants. He can go back and forth with his pieces. Black always has to be careful with all the threats like rook a8, queen d5. He has to protect all those squares. So on the long run, this is very unpleasant for black, even if it's like a 0-0 position for an engine.
Yeah,
Which I'm
agreed.
not sure, of course, but it could be. It could be that it's close to equal. By the way, I hear from Matt that you played a similar position against Komodo with a pawn exchange on c5.
I played a similar position against Komodo with a pawn exchange on C. I don't even remember what I played against Komodo. I've already blacked it out because it was a brutal. It was a brutal. No, I mean I started out playing well. This was a man versus machine match that took place this week. So if you're into that kind of thing, humans versus machines, then go ahead and check out my games against Komodo this week. But it was tough. All right, what do we have here? We got bishop takes h5.
On h5 already. So after queen g5, it was a double attack, threatening the rook on e7 and bishop takes h5. This is how you win this position. You go back and forth, threaten here and there, and in the end, black blunders.
Yeah, and especially because of the time pressure factor, right? I mean, the thing is, sometimes people, I think, lose sight of the fact that you play on an equal position. Just because it's equal doesn't mean it's a draw. And if you play on an equal position and you're up on time, maybe eventually somebody blunders. This was a really nice combination here.
Rook d5, bishop g4. This is how you save the piece, and now it's a pawn up.
Yeah, that's exactly what we have here. Let's slide over to the analysis board so that we can show everybody exactly what happened there. We had this position where when the bishop took on h5, everybody, this pawn on g6 was pinned to the king. And I think Levon missed it because you would think this pawn is untouchable due to rook d5, which is a skewer. But Nepo has this little intermezzo tempo, and if Levon had captured g5, Nepo would have taken e6, and at the end of a line like this, he's not only up a pawn, but in exchange. So if that all happened too fast for you, that was how Nepo got away with stealing that pawn. And now he's really in the driver's seat, Anna, with a big advantage on the clock and just up a clear pawn on the board. So I think we're about to see a level score in this match.
Yeah, also the rook is now on the back rank. If he could double rooks on the back rank, then the king is in trouble on g7. So you will have to play rook e8 as black.
Yeah, rook to c8 is a nice move. Here comes the other rook into a8. Have a hard time. Oh, he trades maybe because he wants the 7th rank with the rook? Perhaps he wants
Probably now he wants that. After b6, the 7th rank is just beautiful for that rook.
Yeah. Okay, so that makes sense. Here he comes into the 7th rank, and I assume moves like h5 and queen g5 are going to follow here. Not exactly sure what order, but at some point White's going to start launching an attack on the king side, and I think Levon is going down in this game.
Yeah, now this pin h5 is there. If you take queen g5 check, I believe, and then okay, he didn't take.
Well, here comes h6 though, right? If h6 now, the f7 pawn falls. So I wonder if Levon quickly played bishop e8, but Nepo scoots up in his chair as we can see, and I'm going to guess that he's calculating whether h6, king g8, h7 kind of works. He decides no, but this position would have been it looked like a really interesting way to keep the attack going. But Nepo being smart from a practical perspective, Anna, he's not even going for the most obvious forcing lines, right? He's sitting on the position, and when you have a big advantage on the clock, everybody, it's really, that shows patience and discipline to just kind of sit tight and let your opponent suffer with no time on the clock.
Yeah, but I'm wondering now if he was maybe wanting to be too smart. This queen h1 move allowing rook h8.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Levon goes and gets that pawn back, and okay, it's still feels like White is potentially doing well here with this wide open king, but I agree with you. Where's the concrete move here now for White?
I think he was not careful enough. So it was good not to go for like the most concrete variation with 3 minutes on the clock against 10 seconds. But he had to be careful about moves like queen h1, and now black has counterplay. Yeah,
I agree. No, and you're right. I mean, that's the counterplay you got to be careful about. But it still looks like an opposite bishop ending with no time on the clock. You can see Levon really getting down to it, gaining a couple seconds back there. But he's literally living off the increment right now, and one tricky move might make him think and just lose. How does Nepo want to continue the attack? There's interesting moves like f4 here. And he goes for it. I like it.
Yeah, Jan went for it.
The point, everybody, is black couldn't take it because in the end, White would have ended up winning a piece. It's a very strong move and a very nice finish
now
there.
He
Queen
has
h3. everybody,
Yes.
because after king to g7, we would see queen takes h8 and mate. So just that was a fantastic attack by Nepo, and even if it wasn't always technically perfect, he kept Levon under pressure, under time pressure, and we have an even match, right?
Yeah, it was surprising. I don't think that queen h1 was the best move, as you said, but it was working because Levon was just so short on time, he couldn't make the best moves. And here goes the h-pawn again.
Here we go again. Another day, another Verisov, another crazy h-pawn by Aronian against Nepo. And Nepo kind of shrugs off there, and although not exactly sure what he's thinking now. Aronian takes on c5. This is just becoming a very unorthodox kind of position. I mean, this is weird to see white neglect developing moves, in exchange for this sort of aggressive pawn push. Then he takes a pawn, and black doesn't even take it back. He sacrifices another. I feel like this is getting beyond me. I don't know what's going on here, but I know this is probably not the best opening for either side, but both sides trying to reach kind of a practical position where they can get good blitz tactics.
I guess they are playing for the audience. They are very
Playing for the
generous.
audience.
They are dear audience, going for the most spectacular, most exciting positions. No boring chess today.
No boring chess today. And yeah, Levon, again, I saw a couple comments about that. Yeah, he is wearing a Celtics jersey. I don't know if it's an Irving jersey, if it's already on the market, for those of you who are NBA fans and follow the blockbuster trade there. But he did tell me he was a Celtics fan forever, even before the Irving trade. So we'll check. We'll have Statboy check on whether he can confirm whether Levon is really a Celtics fan or not, and see. But all right, Levon takes the second pawn, Anna. Here comes queen takes b6, and the b2 pawn is officially under fire. And watch out for tactics whenever you have a file and a diagonal pointing to the same spot.
Yeah, so sacrificing material as black for developments. You see the king on e1 still struggling to develop.
Right.
I like black's chances as long as you can keep this initiative going.
Yeah, black is down a pawn, right? If you do the math, everybody, you've got 6 pawns for white versus 5 pawns for black. But as Anna said, this king is still on e1, and you've already exposed the h-file. So is this king going to castle? If he doesn't do it quickly, is Nepo about to play d4 here? d4 looks like a really interesting move.
That's a critical move for sure, yes.
I like this because everybody, the point is if takes, then obviously you're blowing things open. And if you take on c6 to go win the d4 pawn, well, the problem is in the end of that line, black has g2. So I'm quickly calculating whether d4 is a move here for Nepo, and I really like this idea, especially given that from a practical perspective, Anna, we want to open the center as long as white has a king sitting over here on e1, right?
Very true. So d4, if that move works, then Ian will for sure go for it. He's calculating. Look at that posture. He's very much focused.
Yeah, leaning in and trying to calculate d4. I think that, of course, in d4 also, everybody, the g4 piece was hanging, and in the end he decided he didn't want to go for lines like that. But don't be surprised if we still see a d4 shot coming. Okay, knight e4. That's also super nice. Look at this. The f file and the knight are hitting f2. The e5 knight is now officially under fire because knight e4 unleashed 2 attackers to hit that square. And again, I like Nepo here. I don't know that Levon's ultra crazy Verisov approach here, h4, then taking on c5. Even as a Verisov player, I felt like this was a really weird way for white to play. I don't like where this king's going.
Yeah, I do like black in this position. I'm normally not a person that likes sacrificing material, but with the king on e1, I think this is something that you should definitely go for.
There you go. If we have Anna on board for sacrificing material, we know this is probably pretty good for black.
Once in a lifetime.
Right. And he has to castle because of f2 hanging. Levon is leaning back in his chair, stretching things out. Are we going to see e5 here? e5 certainly seems like a move, strike in the center. Although, now that the king is castled, suddenly we start to notice, the pawns over here, right? The c2, b2, a2 pawns. So, the position remains dynamic, and I still like black's chances, and I still kind of like e5 and d4 to keep opening the position. But white does have a lot of pawns. Let's not forget about that.
I like black's chances. I'm not sure, though, which way shall he continue, because both e5 and d4 look tempting. e5 he started with.
He goes for it, which I like, but now rook d7, so apparently he decides he wants to prepare d4.
By the way, Mike is correcting us that this is not the Verisov since the bishop went to f4. This is called the Jobava pre-attack.
Actually, it is a bishop before Veresov, okay? But Jabava plays it more than anybody. I don't know that he's officially earned the right that it's named after him yet, though.
I think we should name an opening after Jabava, and also
I wouldn't be opposed to it. I agree, and I do look to Jabava's games, but okay, ECO it is. I'm pretty sure bishop before knight c3 is still a Veresov. So anyway, but yeah, here comes knight c5. He removes. He doesn't want the trade, and it's still, you're going to see d4. But the imbalance here, everybody's going to be, you look at a position where black clearly has a nice control over the center. His pieces are a little more coordinated. White kind of spread out. Obviously, this bishop on a2 sort of awkwardly blocked. But when you're looking at a position like this, especially in Blitz, if black doesn't keep that bind and keep these pieces stuck or find some way to convert on it by, I don't know, whether that's opening the center or some other plan, then in the long run, white has these pawns here. So this is a big deal as far as whether black can get something before white's material advantage gets going. Okay, he finally gets d4. I've wanted that.
Yeah, I was just going to say that white's minor pieces on g3 and h2 are very poorly placed, not coordinating. So anything that black can do, he shall do immediately before white has time to reorganize pieces.
Yeah, and he gets d4, and Nepo still seems to be confident, just given his body posture. I think Levon may be a little more nervous. I also am going to have to talk to him about whatever that is in his house hanging from his ceiling. That is the weirdest looking chandelier. Look at that behind his upper right shoulder. Right? That is the weirdest looking chandelier I've ever seen, and I hope it's used for light and not some sort of medieval torture device. So, all right, the game continues. We get knight a4.
I like knight a4 because if you push the b pawn, then the c3 square will be weak forever, and that's what's happening.
That's what's going to happen. Yep.
And the c2 pawn is a backward pawn, also a potential target. Knight c3 now.
Yeah, the knight relocates itself to e3. I love this idea.
Heading towards e3 or f4 as well. Yeah, and the c2 pawn is annoyingly weak, while the d4 pawn is very well protected by the g7 bishop.
Well, nice move by Levon. I'm surprised we didn't see an immediate exchange sack, but I guess it's because he wanted to guard c2. I was thinking, I wonder if he might just chop, and take, and play down the exchange, but I think at the end of that line, there's queen takes c2, and he wasn't interested. But don't be surprised if we see Levon take an opportunity to do one of two things, Anna. Actually sack the exchange, but I'm also just seeing some idea like, let's say a random move. White maybe has c4 with the pawn, a really nice expansion because black... I was
thinking of the same, that even though this knight looks beautiful on e3, the drawback is that you cannot take with this d4 pawn on c3.
Right. Yeah, so let's keep an eye on that, everybody. Levon now feeling a little more confident, and Nepo zooming in. Okay, h5. I like both c4. And from a practical perspective, I hate this knight. So if I really have to, I'd like to consider taking. But I don't know that I have to. And I like this idea of c4 to eliminate myself from having this weak backward pawn and expose, as you said, that this pawn cannot capture without leaving the knight hanging. Okay, queen d3. The game is getting more unclear, right? We're seeing Levon unwind, and the fact that he's up a pawn, he's got this knight on e4. There's squares like g5 and d6. Feeling a little bit more confident that this is going to be a wild finish. But time almost equal.
Yeah, for the first time in the match.
Yeah. First time in the match we've seen it.
h4. Very instructive play by Nepomniachtchi as well. You gain some more space on the king side, and you don't allow bishop g3 and such moves. So you take control of all those squares.
And I think if Nepo has his way, he might even rush h3, right? If he can undermine the g2 pawn, here comes rook takes f3, and all of a sudden we are breaking through with gusto on the king side. I wonder if Nepo is thinking about this right now. He sort of leans back, and I think there's obviously a ton to calculate, right, Anna? If h3, of course, you don't have to take if you're white and allow rook takes f3. You could also take on e3, and maybe that's exactly why he decided to take on c4 first and then play h3. So this idea is on the board, and I think black is going to get some kind of attack here. Will it be enough?
It looks very promising for sure. Rook e4 is a good move. It blocks the diagonal of the queen, but still this position is very sharp. Bishop e5, it's a good idea to trade pieces, as many as you can, if you are in danger.
Yeah, he's trying to eliminate the pressure, and then maybe he'll be up a few pawns in the endgame. As far as time goes, we are only 4 games into the match, and we only have 45 minutes left. I'm curious what stat boy Mr. FIDE Master Mike Klein can come up for us on that. I don't know offhand what the least amount of games played in a 5-minute portion is, Anna, but I bet he can find us the answer because that's the kind of stuff he loves to do. But this is only 4 games over a 45-minute period. It seems slow to me, but maybe I'm wrong.
It does seem slow, and even if we recall this game where Jan was a rook down, he did not resign for like 20 moves. So it's really making all those games long.
All right, well, what do we have here? We've got the queen coming to d4 with check, and I just feel more and more like Levon has turned this game around.
Turn the tables for sure.
A whole lot of pawns on the queen side, and the question is, will f3 and g2 break through for black, or will white find some way to maybe even simplify, trade some queens, and go on to maybe a winning rook ending?
Yeah, now white is officially 2 pawns up, although those doubled c pawns are not very appealing, but you can count it as 1 pawn up at least.
I expect rook g4 here. Oh, okay, and I expect to be wrong, as usual. No problem with that. Rook h5. I'm surprised we didn't see rook g4, but maybe there was some rook takes f3 trick that I don't know. Here comes the king to e2. I think from Aronian's perspective, he knows the king is never going to be safe anyway. Maybe the king will actually be safer if he brings it to the center. And if he has a chance,
counterattack with rook e7.
If he has a chance, I expect him to try to trade queens. Oh, Nepo not happy with that. As we go back to the analysis here, Nepo, we missed a moment on camera, but obviously you and I could see, Anna, Nepo was not happy with that move, everybody, and let's stay zoomed in on these players to see what kind of emotions we might be able to catch on camera. Levon is slowly shifting out of my camera capture, as we know. It's like the running practical joke that all these players have with me is we spend so much time to get them on camera, and then as soon as the games start, we can no longer see their faces.
Of course, we've got some stats already by Mike. The lowest amount of games in the 5-minute portion was played last year by Grishuk and Aronian, 6 games only.
Okay, well, Aronian once again involved in a potential lowest number of games. Maybe, we'll see. Although I guess if they're already on their 4th game, maybe by 45 minutes, I would imagine they'll get more than 2 games. So we'll see. But look at Levon. He's really played well in this one, right? And now we look at the clock, though. It's going to be a time scramble, and that always leads us to the potential chance for some blunders. Like that?
Yes,
no.
It does.
Look, no, it's not a blunder. Wow, he's calculated so well. If black had played queen takes f2,
he wins back the rook. I was like, oh my god, he blundered.
Aronian had calculated so well to know he would have been able to get back his rook and be in a winning queen of pawn ending. So.
But is this good anyway? It looks like, okay, he's not getting a perpetual because of king d4, but still.
Yeah, queen a1 check is met by pawn to c3, blocking the check. And now here comes queen takes g6.
Yeah, he had everything under control, it seems.
Yeah, really, really well calculated and gutsy approach there by Aronian, right? I mean, he walks his king into the middle of the fire zone, and he continues to do it. Here comes the king to c5, and he's going to play rook d4, I bet. Yep, and they're playing moves faster than we can predict them now.
Nepomniachtchi is shaking his head. Of course, this is not how he wanted the game to turn out. He was better after the opening.
For sure, this was not the best Verosoft by Levon. Working his way back into a position to offer a queen trade, but don't be surprised if you get your king in trouble here. And now Levon shaking his head.
Oh no, this could end up very badly. Look at that. At least a perpetual.
He may have seized a perpetual, or I mean, he may be looking for Levon to step on a landmine and get himself mated. Oh, or he may blow it. He allows king b4, and now this king has a race back. Nepo looks to the corner. He knows he's messed up the perpetual.
Oof.
The king comes to d3, and now queen a3 check would have been met by c3, blocking the check, everybody.
Some tragic comedy.
Suddenly the script is flipped, and Levon is on the check attack, and I think he's going to lead to a mate very quickly here.
Yeah, this is mate coming up in a few moves. Oh, no.
Maybe just a queen trade is good enough, though. He might even be able to force himself into a crossfire check that forces a queen trade. I'm sure he's going to be looking for that now. He's trying to look for a way to give a check, everybody, a crossfire check, we call it, where you check here, and when the king moves, you check and trade queens. But Okay, even if he can't find it, Aronian's going to go on to win this one. Just too many pawns, and wow, that was quite the game, right?
It was, and that moment when Nepomniachtchi finally had a chance to give perpetual and he didn't.
Yeah, let's back up and show everybody what we were talking about there. It was all the way back in this moment where Nepo maybe got a little greedy. Hard to get there. The game is done and Aronian wins, but Nepo got a little greedy there, and there we go. Let's stay with the present moment. But surely that's going to be one he regrets, right? Because he had a perpetual. He's shaking his head, a little frustrated, taking a sip of water. And we have another English. Nepo is white. It looks like we're going to get an English. So far, this is a theoretical battle between very soft, dubious openings by Aronian and the English by Nepo is white. So
yeah, the same kind of variation as they played in the previous game. So we shall see who will deviate from what they played already.
Yeah, well, already we see h3 played. I think that's the first deviation, right? In the last game, Nepo didn't play h3, but rather... was it rook c1 or a4? But, black brought the knight into d4. Here we already have the commitment of that bishop coming to h5, which, remember, was kind of a critical decision that we talked about later in that game when Levon brought it to e6. So this is becoming a little bit... This is definitely different. Don't be surprised, everybody, if we still see black play for an idea like knight to d4 here. Maybe not right away. I think maybe knight d4 runs into g4, defending the e2 pawn, followed by bishop gobbles pawn on b7. So, but the knight on d4 idea is just such a common theme for black in these English openings. So as soon as black has a chance to do it, normally they do. And Levon has officially given us a very good view of his forehead, officially off screen now, but okay, he is fully focused, and that's what's very clear.
So who won the opening battle in this game?
I wish I knew for sure. I still feel like black. I still feel like black, but Levon isn't sure. He's thinking. I think he's debating whether he likes this idea of knight d4 still, and maybe he wants to induce g4 on that line I suggested. There's other moves to consider, of course. You can maybe bring the rook over to c5. Maybe that's overly aggressive. I think in an ideal world, black finds a way for this rook to get involved in something on the king side and justify its fifth rank lift. But Levon is calculating how he wants to approach this position. With the knight on d2, Nepo is clearly threatening moves like knight to c4 to gain a tempo on the rook, and then continue to bring pressure to the queen side. Maybe moves like knight d4 and try to use the b file. So Levon's gone into the think tank. Note that Nepo is still at 5 minutes, right? That's the starting time control. So Nepo has played fast enough in this English that he has plenty of time.
We got some very important information from Pete this time, that the best move in the previous position was rook a6, strangely enough.
Yeah, quite the computer move, but makes sense, honestly, from the perspective that after rook a6, you avoid that tempo, and it's kind of like the idea I was talking about, but this rook maybe puts itself in a position to eventually swing to the king side. So sometimes the computers say weird counterintuitive things, and then you look at it and you go, oh, that's why they're better than us, because that move actually makes sense. All right, well, we get knight d4, g4, and bishop g6. So we've talked about this position, and here comes white using the b file. All kind of moves we've been sort of predicting here, and the knight is on c4. I like Nepo's pressure on the queen side.
The b7 pawn is such an unpleasant target. What do you do about this pawn? You cannot advance it, and if you play c6, then you weaken the b6 square. It's going to be a backward pawn on b7. There's just no recipe for getting rid of this pawn.
Yeah, and Levon agrees, so he tries for a counterattack with h5, but now e3. This knight will have to move, and white may consider just gobbling up that h-pawn now that it has some defense from the queen on d1. So, interesting stuff there. I'm not exactly sure how Levon deals with this. I think he has to bring the knight back. I don't think there's any justification in just sacrificing the knight. You take on h3, but I don't think that an attack like this would be worthy, and Levon agrees. So he backs up the knight to c6, and now Nepo can decide if he's... Well, I guess the d3 pawn is hanging, right? So you can't just take h5 without
the
d3.
a5
So
pawn as well. I'm not sure about this e3 move. I don't like it.
yeah, maybe Nepo agrees with you. Now he kind of gives himself a little bit of a head shuffle.
I thought he had a plan, so I was not going to say anything about it before, but now that he started thinking...
Yeah, you should definitely... my theory is always question the players and then look like a fool later. So yeah, always question them. And so he goes bishop e4. Maybe that is his plan, actually. He defends the d3 pawn by offering a trade. And probably this exchange does favor white. I mean, if we get a full trade on e4 and a trade on d1, Anna, you definitely got to like white's transition into the endgame here, because the d and the b file seem to really keep black hampered down.
Yeah, but it's going to peter out, I think. There are too many trades. You will take the a5 pawn for the b7 pawn, or is there some pin after knight takes a5? Like, I take... Okay, he took on g4, then you take on e4, you take the queen, and then you take on a5.
Mm-hmm. So let's look
Is
at that.
there any tricks there?
Yeah, you may be right.
Intermediate move, bishop takes g6.
Yeah, and I think that probably is the best by Nepo. But I think still in that, you're right. In that rook ending, I think white has a tiny edge because the rook would have been on the 7th rank. But overall, yeah, I mean, close to petering out. Maybe that's why Nepo took on g6 first. Try to gain a bit more of a positional advantage by creating some weak pawns. And now offers the queen trade again. Probably queen takes d3 here instead of queen takes g4 is met by moves like rook to d1. But
it's risky. It's risky for sure, but maybe he has to go for it, and then queen f5 next move.
And then queen f5. I agree. I actually think that maybe Levon can get away with this. I'm expecting queen f5 now. We'll see what he does. Yeah, indeed. He goes for the line that we have on the analysis board here. So let's see how it continues. If they continue to play like our analysis, I'm going to guess that white might play rook to b5 here. I don't think you really want to trade on f5 if you're white, because that just fixes black's pawns.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and there he goes. He plays rook b5. We are guessing moves almost too accurately.
You
Something
did well,
weird is
Danny.
going on here.
Are we cheating, or what's going on?
What it says is that they're not playing well. That's what it says. If we're guessing moves, then it says we're not playing well. That's the truth.
I like this rook b5 anyway. It's a nice way of attacking and defending at the same time. Now he doubled on
I like that move. And okay, now the question is, does he want to take b7 and go for kind of a simplification like you discussed? The a5 pawn is hanging for black. Or is there some other way to build on the tension? One move is okay, he goes for that. I was wondering if e4 was an option, kind of forcing the question to the black queen. He decides against it and plays rook takes b7. One line to be very careful about, Anna, if knight takes a5, there may be ideas like rook b8 check, and if king h7, you have queen h4 check with a fork on the rook on e7.
Beautiful.
So Levon has to sit here and think before he moves that knight from c6, and he decides, yep, I got to trade off that queen before things get too real. All right, well, we got that simplification, and it's an endgame kind of like you predicted a few moves ago. I think white likes the rooks on the 7th rank, but white's also down a pawn. So
yeah, this isn't the same exactly because of those doubled g pawns. And he's not going for the knight trade. I think this is a better chance if white is playing for the win. Knight e4, knight g5, still some tricks.
I agree. Yeah, that's a great point. In fact, if the attack continues on the king side here, then this king may actually really have a mating net to worry about. I think f3 is probably fine now for white.
Yeah.
Yeah, he goes for it. Play f3.
Prevented knight e4, but now again it is a threat.
Rook b4, and I think you could even
rook c1. Yeah.
I was going to say because of rook b8 coming. I actually wondered if he should have just traded. I was thinking he could have even traded and maybe then just played knight e4. I think he played rook c1 a little too fast, but suddenly rook b8, because now with that rook on the 8th rank gone, I think black is getting out of the mating net.
Yeah, I think your move was better. I also missed this rook b8 that Jan did not see. And now black should be okay, but this is still looking more like a draw.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the white knight is so strong there on e4, right? Just such a powerful piece. Black structure is less than ideal, as they say, right? Lots of doubled isolated pawns there, so not good for black. Yeah, I would be surprised if Nepo isn't actually the one playing for a win here somehow.
I think white is playing on because even though you have a C passed pawn as black, you can't advance it and you can't really activate your pieces. So you don't have an outpost for the black knight, and the rook doesn't have an open file either.
Right, I agree. And also the time advantage suggests to us that there's no reason for Nepo to not keep playing here, right? I mean, look at that. Levon down on time consistently in this match, but this is about as big of an advantage as we've seen. I mean, this is a full 3-minute plus advantage for Nepomniachtchi.
Yeah, I don't think that white can actually win this game unless black blunders, but he should definitely try to play on since he's got so much time on the clock, and the position is very pleasant for white.
Yeah, agreed. And the question is, I wondered if there was some way for white to get the king involved, and I don't know exactly how that looks, but perhaps bringing the king around to g5 at some point is an idea for white. Here he tries to improve the rook first. Okay, Levon puts a stop on any chance that my idea comes to life here.
Yeah, unfortunately, and it's not easy to bring it anywhere else, like to go towards the d5 square. You can't really cross. I think he's going to try, but...
Yeah, I think he's going to try. He's going to try to bring the king somewhere and continue to kind of poke and prod and say, well, yeah, maybe it's a draw, but I'm up a lot on time, and we'll see how you handle the increment. Here comes f4.
e4 looks like a great move because it's going to lead to some trade.
I think Nepo, if you want to win, you got to play for f4 here. I think you create...
But that leaves this e4 pawn alive, so black
totally
will have a passed pawn.
No, I agree, right?
I think that's too risky, so they agreed in a draw.
Interesting. Nepo says, "All right, I've pushed my hand far enough, and I'm gonna let you off of the hook with a draw here, despite only having 7 seconds." So that means Aronian maintains his 1-game lead in the match, right?
And once again, bishop f4 and the h pawn going. I'm gonna write this down that we need to ask in the post-match interview about his opening choice.
Yeah, for sure we should ask him about this. This line is I mean, has he ever looked at this before, or is this just total shenanigans by Levon? It's definitely
It's great
strange.
to see them repeating opening because what we need to experience now is that, well, in the previous game, black got a very nice position in the very same line, so white has to improve it. And he didn't have time to check it. He didn't have time to analyze it. He has to come up with something on the board right now.
Yep, agreed. And this is going to be another tricky Verisov where maybe white has the king in the center and maybe black can strike with e5 and d4. We saw this position a few moves ago. And speaking of repeating things, in case you weren't here a few moves ago, let me do my thing and remind you of what you're watching. This is the 2017 Speed Chess Championship. Brought to you by Masterclass, by the way. Our sponsor, Masterclass, has a course coming out with Gary Kasparov very soon. All kinds of stuff supposed to be revealed for all different levels of chess understanding, including opening novelties and different types of takes by the world champion on the common tactical patterns and all kinds of interesting stuff. I'm really curious to see how it happens. We haven't gotten our sneak peek yet, Anna. We're supposed to get a sneak peek and actually get the whole course here at Chess.com so we can give more personal reviews, but that's coming. And maybe we'll try to get you one too, get you to give it a review. And
I would
anyway.
love to. And my official apologies to Mr. Kasparov. I was not going to talk over his announcement. I didn't know that it was on the time I spoke at the beginning of the stream.
Oh yeah, don't worry about it. In fact, I think we should do that. I think we should run the commercial and do running commentary and make fun of it as we go.
No,
I like that
have
idea.
Too much
But
respect for Kasparov.
anyway, but remind everybody here, we got it. We got the Speed Chess Championship sponsored by Masterclass. You are watching Nepomniachtchi versus Levon Aronian, and the winner of this 7-10 matchup will take on the number 2 seed Sergei Karyakin, reigning World Blitz champion. So don't forget it. And that's what we are here doing. And here we move on. It's still a 3-2 lead for Levon Aronian, and some weird stuff has happened. Let's head back over to the analysis and see what happened over these last couple moves, because
yeah, and of course, shout out to everybody in the chat. I see that Ginger GM is here with us and several other title players, and of course the Chess.com family. Hello to everybody. Let us know in the chat who you think will win the match, and use the hashtag SpeedChess on social media. Tweet us, especially.
Well, I have never had more of an ill-timed shout-out to sponsors happen, so I apologize for that. That was absolutely insane. Levon Aronian wins a miniature
Oh,
And
we missed that.
in fact, so insane that I'm going to back up real quick and take a quick look. I don't normally do that, but I know that the fans want to see what happens. So where did this particular Verisov go wrong? You can actually, let's see. So let's take a quick look at what happened in this game, because after he took on c5 and takes on b6, it looks like Nepomniachtchi just blundered this idea of knight takes d5, and the point, everybody, was that if he had taken bishop to c4, was just winning the queen on the spot. So that's what happened right there, was he just blundered a simple knight takes d5, and once that pawn fell, the diagonal became open, and as you see, the final position was just an absolute smashing. So we head back over to the live game, and we don't want to lose too much of that, because now we see Nepo, is he on tilt? He switches from the English to the Scotch for the first time, Anna. Now, Nepo plays the Scotch. I know that because I play the Scotch regularly, and he's one of those top grandmasters that I'm always aware of what he's doing. So just so everyone knows, Nepomniachtchi plays the Scotch regularly, and this is a really dangerous line for black. So maybe he'll be able to strike back, but I'm interested to see what happens now that he's gone away from his English for the first time.
Yeah, I was expecting him to switch between c4 and e4 in this match, as he plays both. And as for Levon, I think we will see the English mainly, but he also plays d4 openings. Yeah,
well, obviously we've seen only d4 so far, right? This Verisov here from Levon Aronian.
Yeah, I mean normal d4 opening. Sorry for not calling it d4 before. D4
no, you're right. Verisov is not normal d4.
Opening.
Yeah, here comes the queen to e4.
Such, pushing the c pawn.
Yep. All right, there's a threat of queen takes c6 check, everybody. That's what's on your board, so don't miss that. And if black plays a normal move to defend it, one of the ideas behind the queen on e4 is you also finally create a situation where you can complete your development. Sometimes this bishop will come to d3, certainly if black tried to castle kingside. And otherwise, the queen is just very dominant there. So Aronian having to think about how he wants to defend that pawn, and he decides it's not worth defending. I'd rather attack, and here comes queen to g6. We're going to have a fun, sharp game in this one.
Maybe not so sharp, but yeah, the queens are still on the board. Queen takes c6, bishop d7 just happened. And whose king will be in danger?
Yeah, good question. White has won 2 pawns on the queen side, and maybe the d6 pawn comes under fire if black goes and takes here with check. As fun as this seems, I think Nepomniachtchi's idea is that with that bishop gone, at some point white's going to be able to break through on the d-file. But the h3 rook is also hanging on with the bishop here, so I have no idea what's going to happen here. Levon goes for that line where he captures and then takes the rook, and the question, will we see a queen trade offer, or will we see him gobble the pawn with check? Either way, Nepomniachtchi doesn't seem thrilled. After blundering last game, missing knight takes d5, here he's shaking his head and certainly feels like he did not get the best Scotch game he's ever had. Levon is feeling pretty chipper, talking to himself there.
I wonder if he's singing or he is calculating, but you don't really see elite players calculating with their lips moving. So
right. He's also got a dog in the room with him, so I wouldn't be surprised if Levon Aronian was a dog whisperer. I'm just going to throw it out there that if Levon Aronian had a second skill, one of them would probably be talking to animals. So, just a theory. All right, look at that. He played c5. That was such a sweet move, everybody. The reason it forced castles is because it unleashes this threat of bishop to b5 check, and the mating attack is on. And so he castles and gives back the piece on b6, but, well, this is a weird one. This is weird.
I'm not sure which color I like here. I usually like to have material up, but I don't feel so secure about the c1 king with these c and b5s opening up. Although the d6 pawn is going to fall anyway. It's just, what is this position, Danny?
I have no idea. I'm looking, and I wonder if the key point is that the rook is going to come to c8 here, and maybe he's calculating some idea where he brings the rook to c8 and this bishop will come back to f5 with check. And so that's why Nepo plays rook d2, because if he had, okay, we're going to get rook c8, the line I was talking about, but if the king had gone to b1, Nepo would save, or sorry, Levon would save the bishop with check and then do this. So Nepo didn't allow that with rook d2, but Levon gets rook c8 anyway. And one of the issues here is that there's a threat of rook takes f2, Anna. So if something like queen takes a7 is played, black has rook takes f2.
And now that
problems.
the knight is pinned, there's no knight e4 anymore. So this looks like game over.
Yeah, Nepo is thinking he doesn't want that to be the case, that it's game over, but he doesn't seem to be his most chipper self. Okay, he does take on d6, and I expect we'll see rook takes f2 here because it looks, although b7 might come now, right? Queen takes d6, interesting. Is this crazy or what? If rook takes f2, b7, sacrifice the bishop with check, and suddenly you may be able to get a queen over here?
Rook d8, more accurate it seems, and that is game over.
Okay, so there we go. Yeah, and Nepo agrees. He leans back and little frustrated with himself, and suddenly we have a 3-game lead for the Armenian, assuming that this one goes that direction, and potentially a big turnaround will need to be in store for Nepo to get back in this match. But, if I had to predict coming in, I would say Levon is, he is the stronger player, I think, in terms of being at the, the top of the world's elite. I think a lot of people would consider Levon Aronian, better than Nepomniachtchi, obviously. So I think Levon should have an edge, and the real question will always be bullet, right? Will it be a great equalizer and help the underdog Nepomniachtchi, or will Levon surprise us and be better in the bullet as he has been in the blitz so far?
True, and look at that hit. Nepo is still trying to complicate matters. Gave a check on c4 and now pushes b7, but this shouldn't work, should it?
Now rook takes d6 is game over, reminding him that the bishop on h3 is guarding the rook on c8. So yeah, rook takes d6 and Nepo resigns. No, he doesn't. He takes and gets a rook.
Never resigns.
Nepo is I like his attitude, though. I mean, he's shaking his head, but he seems to have this attitude that he wants to keep playing, and maybe it's because
take the rook on d6, and he will have a rook and a piece, unless it doesn't look like his position is all right. So yeah, this shouldn't be good. Just looking at any immediate threat, if you can win more.
Yeah, I was wondering if he would just sack the exchange.
Yeah. Okay, this is just simple enough.
Yeah,
so
but no, definitely something worth playing on right now, right? I mean, he's still got reasons to play on here, as we have 18 minutes left in the total game clock of the 5-minute portion. After that, we will have a very, very quick break, 2-3 minutes usually. Players get some take a breath of fresh air, and then we roll on to the 3-minute portion. So if you're just joining us, don't go anywhere. The most exciting moments of this match are likely yet to come. So, and I don't expect this to remain a 2-game, 3-game lead. I think we'll see Nepo bounce back at some point, but right now he seems to be kind of down.
I think the same, and since the next portion is already a shorter time control, that will favor Jan already, the 3-minute blitz games. Levon was very slow in the first game, sometimes giving 2-minute advantage to his opponent. He cannot do that in 3-minute matches.
Yep, agreed. It'll be a huge point to see who plays faster as the time controls get faster. G4, very nice technique right now by Aronian. He's got this rook. This is good lessons for everybody. The rook is dominating in the center, and he's opening up new targets for the bishop by prying open this diagonal. G2 becomes a problem. I mean, it's still going to take some technique. I mean, Levon has to find a way to advance without allowing any kind of tricky blockades by the knight, but I think it's just a matter of time before Aronian gets this king active and eventually goes on to win this one. Nice move, rook g3 as well. Suddenly b3 is a problem.
Checking out on you guys in the chat. Let us know who do you think will win the match, and also try to guess the final score, because it's not only about who's going to win, but what will be the score. There's money on the line, so even the loser takes cash, and the more points he scores, the more money he gets.
Yep, great point. And right now, of course, we have the 4-2 lead, but we have the bracket prizes that are available. A lot of people filled out their bracket predicting who will win the Speed Chess Championship. 4-2 right now in favor of Aronian, but the match is young, and we'll see what the final score is. Currently, the biggest winning margin was achieved by, I think, let's see, is that Karyakin? Karyakin by 12. So no, I guess Nakamura beat Gregorians by 13. So there you go. That's our biggest score margin so far. This game is just headed toward a victory for Aronian, cleaning up things, Nepo did a pretty good job finding at least some drawing chances in case Levon didn't have the best technique, but this is just over now. And Nepo may be asking one of our teammates a question here, probably asking how much more time in the 5 minute before I get to take a break, because right now I think he's kind of frustrated.
Yes, he's asking if this was the last 5 minute game.
And there is about 15 minutes total left, so he'll learn there's probably at least one more 5 minute game left, and maybe match strategy he wants to play this on. He does decide to resign, but I think that if he's smart and drains the total game clock, he can get closer and closer to the 3 minute portion, especially if he likes the faster time controls to favor him. So gamesmanship, as they say, right? Overall match strategy, trying to milk the total game clock to get to the faster time control. So
he seems to be happy about the next game or two. He didn't realize that he will still have this time control. He said it's good that they have one more game to go.
Good. Okay, well, there you go. So, yeah, I don't think Nepo is, he's basically played a couple big blunders, right? I mean, we saw in the last game this terrible knight takes d5 miscue where he couldn't take because the queen would have been pinned, and that led to just an absolutely crushing attack here. White wins the bishop, and then the idea, everybody, was there was mate coming on the h-file. Let me show you how that would have finished, because that would have been pretty fun. Rook takes h7 and queen h1 would have been a nice way to end the game with checkmate. All right, but the next game has started. We have a 3-game lead for Levon Aronian. We have d4 again, and again, he's sticking with the Verisov.
No.
He is all about that Verisov today.
Oh, but with the e4, so we are actually transposing to a Pirc.
Yep. So we've seen Verisovs from Aronian. This time, Nepo doesn't even commit the pawn to d5. Instead, invites a transposition into an e4 opening, and that's exactly what we have here. Well, so far we've seen a pretty decent mixture of players mixing it up. I mean, especially Nepo. I think now that he's been sort of put a little bit off balance, right? He's willing to mix it up and try different positions, not beating his head against the Verisov and English wall. But what do you think so far in terms of what we've seen from these players?
I think Levon is very convincing in terms of his play, but his time control is not the best. Therefore, in the 3-minute games, it will be crucial to see whether he can speed up and keep the same level of chess, or there will be problems either with time or the quality of the game.
Yep. So if time ends up being a factor, right now things seem to be favoring Nepo. But let's talk about this position we have right here. This has become a weird Pirc. It almost looks like some sort of Sicilian now, right? The C pawn being traded for the D pawn, and we've transposed into a pawn structure that's very much like a Sicilian. Normally
yeah, like
you see
a dragon, and
right.
Now this knight on d5 is looking good, but it's a typical, as you mentioned, it's a very typical Sicilian position. Exactly a Sicilian position, with black coming with his major pieces to the c5, putting pressure on the c2 pawn. And the fianchetto bishop on g7 is lovely. Bishop d4 is against this. Bishop f4 could be coming up later on, and you want to trade this piece.
Yeah, good summary there, and that's what both sides want to do, and I think that Nepo decides not to let this knight sit on d5 any longer. This is almost also similar to the English they had from the other color, right? So we've seen this sort of structure.
The Sicilian is basically a reversed English, so
right.
Yeah, that's what they are doing.
Yeah, so we'll see who unwinds here better. The threat I'm looking at here has got to be f4. I think that Levon has got to decide, do I want to push this pawn and risk opening my dark squares? You should always be aware of that. Don't push pawns willy-nilly. But after knight c6 captures on g7, Levon might have all-out aggressive intentions like f5 and trying to come with an attack. But my guess is those aren't going to work due to White's own dark square problems. So Levon decides to bring more pieces into the game first with rook a3. I really like this move, rook a3.
I do like it too, because you can play on the queen side and even on the king side thanks to this rook a3 move. So rook b3 targeting the b7 pawn, or what you mentioned, f4, f5, and then the rook swinging to g3 or h3. It's just nice to play this position because White has more space. A pair of bishops is not that big of a factor here, I believe, because you will want to trade this g7 bishop anyway. More space is a factor. And Black, on the other hand, what he will try to do is to maneuver with his pieces, with the knights, and now this queen f8 move. Well, it usually happens in this position that you have just the 7th and the 8th rank for your pieces. So this is what you gotta do, make these weird-looking moves.
Yeah, with less space, squares are at a premium, right? So you see these weird maneuvering moves. But Black has an idea here, everybody. A lot of times Black might try bishop f6 and then queen to g7, and you create a battery of the queen and bishop on this diagonal. Not the most common kind of battery you see, but and White is constantly posed with this f4 question we've been mentioning. White kind of wants to play f4 to kick the knight out and be aggressive, but as soon as you do, that's a pawn that can't go back, and there's always these potential weak dark squares. So that's kind of the dynamic going on here. And but now Nepo seems to be unwinding, and as this d4 square comes under light, I really like this move knight c6. He's highlighting that d4 is an outpost square, which means it doesn't have a pawn available to protect it. So if
and
Nepo
now you
can
see the queen is very useful in f8, so you will take back on g7 with the queen, control the dark squares.
Absolutely. So he's going to bring the... Okay, I'm surprised he didn't play knight d4 immediately, but he's gaining a tempo another way. Knight d4 also would have gained a tempo because of threats on e2. But I like the way this game is headed for Black, and I expect the d4 square to become a problem. Here it comes. Even if this knight has to relocate to d7. Yeah, I think this is fine for Black, and I think that this is like a good Maroczy bind, right? It wasn't a traditional Maroczy bind in terms of the opening, everybody, but what happens here is you have this good knight versus a potential bad bishop, and if Black can keep the structure the same, and this knight can kind of remain the dominant minor piece on the board, then he's got control. White is going to use the space that you have behind the pawns to try to prepare things like b5 and c5 and try to open things up, but this position seems to have gone pretty well for Black.
I agree with you. I like Black. And now what White wants to do is to attack this knight, force e5, so at least he has the d5 square. But it's not the same because you have a knight to jump to d5, but Black has 2 knights, and the other one is coming to e6 and f4. The c4 pawn is also always in the air, so you can't really do much about improving your pieces easily as White.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. And I think that White has to shuffle and hope for an opportunity. Sometimes you even try to sack the exchange if you can ruin it, but this has been kind of a clinic in terms of how to play Black in the Maroczy bind, everybody. If you're curious, maybe you play an Accelerated Dragon. This is a game you can go back after this match and check it out, right? Don't be surprised when you can learn things from the best players in the world, even in Blitz, because this whole maneuvering approach by Black to get this bind on these dark squares has been really impressive.
Shout out to Grandmaster Peter Swidler, who is here with us in the chat. That's such an honor for us that Peter Swidler is watching. I wish I could just give up my seat and make Peter commentate instead of me.
Yeah, Peter did a phenomenal job, and he hasn't done a lot of commentary. But
sometimes he has to play because he's just way too strong. So, the
right.
Olympic team and such. But we love hearing Peter commentate.
Absolutely. And now, White, you'll notice White avoided that trade, everybody. The reason is, you don't want to get a position that's even more simple. And the more simple the position is, the more you highlight the differences between the knight and bishop and how dominant that is. So Aronian avoided that as long as he could. And now he actually did manage to trade off the knight on d4 for his knight with this nice little trick where the knight came into f5 because this g6 pawn was pinned to the queen. But I still think that Black is in the driver's seat here, even with that trade. And maybe we don't have the d4 square. If this knight can find itself to another dark square, he's probably doing okay.
The problem is this bishop. That's always going to be worse than Black's knight. So, yes, as you mentioned, that even though White has eliminated the d4 knight, the bishop on f1 is still on the board. Now he's trying for a counterplay on the king side. So queen h6, rook h3. That is a good idea.
Right. Yeah, suddenly he seems to be coming to life a little bit, but it doesn't... I have a hard time believing it can lead to too much concrete. I mean, I think now Nepo is deciding, you can see on his face, do I want knight g5 and hit the rook, or do I want to trade queens? He's going to trade queens, and then I think if you're White, you have to consider the idea of coming to d3 and trying to give up the exchange for a knight and a pawn on d4.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he doesn't go for it. But, I mean, the one thing we haven't been talking about is look at that clock again. I mean, I said
Yeah.
last game it might have been as big of a time advantage as we've seen, and I was wrong. I mean, this is almost 4 minutes. I mean, this is crazy for, I guess it's coming down to 3 minutes, but
huge.
huge time advantage for Nepomniachtchi.
So we like his position. He's up on the clock. Now the question is, how can he progress in this position? And playing this fast in the 3-minute portion will give him a huge advantage. Levon will have to speed up no matter what.
Yep. Okay, well, he plays tickle there back and forth a little bit, but I doubt we're going to see are we really going to see a perpetual? Well, now Aronian can take it. Isn't this 3
It's a
times?
threefold repetition, isn't it?
I believe this is 3 times that it's repeated.
Or he has to go back still to e5.
Yeah, I guess
Maybe
black has the choice.
Yeah, now he has to go back. That would be the 3rd time we see the same position.
And I don't expect we'll see that. I think that
Now he can
has
do
to-
anything.
Oh, but he goes to
He's
f6.
allowing the draw.
Now he's allowing the draw.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. I did not expect that coming, but maybe he was already not so happy about his position.
Yeah, and maybe he also still thinks that he's almost at the end of the 5-minute portion. Just wanted to kind of stop the bleeding, as they say, right? These guys are practical. I mean, he lost a couple games in a row and wasn't playing his best chess. He recovered there, outplayed White really in that Maroczy bind until maybe he blundered this knight f5 idea that allowed the trade on d4, Anna, because suddenly White did find counterplay, and apparently, according to Nepomniachtchi, it was enough to agree to a draw. Our first Spanish.
Yeah.
Our first Lopez, making Magnus Carlsen and Sergei Karyakin proud to play this line. I didn't expect that. Didn't expect to see a lot of Spanish. I guess, although Nepo, of course, does, as you said, play e4 and c4. So we'll see. Maybe this isn't the last one we will see.
Yeah, he does play everything after e4, Spanish, Scotch, Italian. Sometimes even second d4 he tried against Aronian. I'm expecting that in maybe a bullet game.
Okay, so what goes on here? I feel like the Spanish is right. We get a lot of these positions. If you're Levon Aronian, that and the Italian seems to be what everybody wants to play these days.
It deviated from the main lines, but
Yeah,
of course this is not a new position for any of these players. What?
Yeah, you've got a weird setup with this knight on b7, less than ideal, but White also has a pinned knight on a2. So both sides putting a knight kind of on the rim of the board. Bishop g5 is a nice move by Nepo, because if he can eliminate this knight on f6, this knight from a2 will come back to c3 and perhaps find a home on d5 at some point. Also, bishop g5, of course, just unpins the knight on a2 because now the rook is protected.
Yeah, and black will have to do something about the b7 knight. You cannot leave that piece on b7 forever.
Yeah, I tend to like White's opening here, and I'm not a Spanish expert by any means. Again, I wish we had Peter Leko here, or a Spanish expert. I'm not even sure Peter is a Spanish expert, but he's a much stronger
I think all
grandmaster.
Peters are Spanish experts.
Yeah.
Mr. Svidler, Mr. Leko, Mr.
Yeah.
This Peter. I think both of them. Let's keep these two.
All right, so the knight comes to d8. It wants to head into e6 or c6, any square that's better than it was on b7, maybe get some access to these dark squares. Here it comes. All right, well, we're going to get the trade and kind of the line we talked about as far as why White played bishop g5. White seems to be a little better here, and maybe you can play b5 and try to solidify that knight's home there in the center. Yeah, he goes for it. I like that move. And now...
It gives
Now
up the c5 square, but it does keep the d5 knight, so you win.
Right.
You give up something, but you win this beautiful post on d5. Definitely worth it.
Yeah, it feels like White has an edge here, just from the sense that the d5 square's a little more aggressive and a little more effective than anything that Black might get with the knight on c5. I think if you're Aronian, you have to find some way to unwind. It's similar in the sense to the last position where you say you don't have a lot of space, so these pieces are all kind of fighting for the same squares. Maybe you bring this other rook over to b8.
Oh, look at that. Jan is leaving
I think
room.
that's, if I had to guess, he's been drinking a lot of water. I started to put two and two together. As far as why he was typing and asking for a break. And
A bathroom break is going on here now, live on Chess.com.
right, well, he's got a minute and 30-second time advantage, and decided he couldn't just sit there anymore and Perhaps Levon, speaking of gamesmanship, kind of knew. He's watching his opponent drink a bunch of water, and he's like, "Well, let's let this drag out a little bit." But okay, officially, this is going to be the last game of this time control. In case anybody is wondering, there is only 35 seconds left here in the 5-minute portion, Anna. So we are going to take a quick break. And well, not yet. After this game, we're going to take a quick break at some point, and then we will be moving on to the 3-minute portion. So, I think this is a big game, bigger than people think. I think a 3-game lead is significant. We've talked about Aronian not managing his time as well as Nepo, Anna, but 3 games is a lot to make up in any one given time control. So, given that this is now going to be officially moving into the 5-minute out of the 5-minute portion. Yeah, we are officially done with the 5-2 portion after this game.
So here we go. He has made it to the bathroom and made a good move on the board at the same time.
Well, I'm sure he was thinking about it. These guys don't need the board in front of them to know what's going on. So,
you don't really see people going to the bathroom in Blitz games, during Blitz games, but since this is a 3-hour match, he thought this was a good moment.
Well, we call that the MVL gambit, right? Maxime eats and drinks so much food and water during these things that I think we've seen him get up on his time despite the time control multiple times. So, but I still like the way Nepo's playing. And again, it's interesting to know, obviously, as I've already acknowledged, neither one of us really felt like a Spanish expert, but watching White play this position, just from evaluating it from whatever chess knowledge I have left, it just feels like White is squeezing the light squares in a way that's much more effective than a plan that Black has. F5 makes sense. You got to try to find a way to undermine White's center, but I feel like the dynamics here are favoring White. I still like the idea of bringing this knight to c6. Maybe my other knight can come to d2 and also eventually find a home on one of these light squares.
Knight a6. Look at that. Look at that. We were expecting knight c6, but he wants to create a passed pawn after knight takes.
Yeah. Wow. He takes and also creates a dynamic of, a potential good knight versus bad bishop. We had that last game from the opposite colors. But if this knight can relocate itself to any one of these light squares here, you're going to see a very, very strong minor piece versus kind of a blocked-in black counterpart there. So it's, again, it still feels like White is really in the driver's seat. And notice the bathroom break didn't really affect Nepo's time advantage. He's still up 2 minutes on the clock. So I think Nepo's going to strike back here, and we're going to see a 2-game lead for Aronian heading into the 3-minute portion. Prediction.
I agree with you. I think that's what's going to happen because this 3+ advantage. We saw Levon playing better, but Nepomniachtchi missed chances, many chances.
Oh, I guess I keep forgetting, and my teammate has reminded me. So yeah, this is the last 5-minute game. Classical chess, but we have one game 960. Remember, that's one of the fun parts of the Speed Chess Championship is a chess 960 game, which is Fischer random. If you don't know what that is, the pieces are shuffled randomly on the back rank, and you're about to find out in about 30 seconds or a couple minutes here. So we have one chess 960 game, which does count toward the total score. So my apologies for getting a format that I've hosted dozens of times. So tells you where my head's at. But yeah, there you go. Chess 960 coming up.
I already see some fun tweets about this match. Keep those tweets coming. #SpeedChess. Anton Squared Me has already cropped a nice video of Jan and Levon. Their facial expressions are worthless. You need to see it on Twitter. #SpeedChess. Go and check it out.
Anton Squared Me is one of the best follows out there. That guy.
I
wonder what he does with his time if he sits there and just looks for opportunities for chess gifts. I mean, we may need to have some conversations about his life choices, but as far as the gifts he creates, I love it. So
I do love his photoshops and the gifts he makes. So you must follow Anton Squared Me on Twitter and check out what he has just published with the #SpeedChess. And also, you should tweet us. Danny, are we giving out any premium any diamond memberships?
We should, of course. I don't even know what we're giving out, but we're giving out. Oh, look at this. Queen e2, nice move, because if the rook moved, we had queen c4 check, forking the king and bishop. So Aronian still in trouble here and still down on the clock. Nepo does eventually relocate this knight to try to come into one of these light squares here. And with this pawn on a6 sort of looming there, it just feels, you don't want to leave a pawn that's passed on the 6th rank for that long. At some point, bad tactics happen, right? That's how promotion tactics happen when you neglect an advanced pass pawn. Yeah, but as far as prices go, Anna, for sure. I mean, let's see. Let's give away some diamond memberships for whatever your favorite tweets are. We're just going to leave it all on Anna to just choose her favorite tweet. So that way everyone can be nice to you on Twitter, and we'll see who gets we'll see. No, but send us the normal tweets, right? Show us how you're watching the match.
Sure,
tell us your favorite game, whatever. If you have it to make a GIF, Anton squared me style, go for it. Knight to b3. I love that move. Knight b3 is attacking the pinned bishop, and if you capture with the rook, queen to c4 check, and after the move, queen to f7.
Yes.
It's just a big fancy trade. He's just gonna go. Well, he's gonna go get the bishop on c5. It's just a big fancy trade, but he's left with this pawn on a6.
He still had queen f7.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Anyway.
It's just a trade, but it did help white to bring the pieces closer. And I don't even see any threats here for black, so why not play a7? Okay, Nepo decides to be safer than that, but my pawn is itching to get to a7. Don't hold me back anymore.
We'll go for it.
Yeah, there we go. Yay.
Yoo-hoo!
Push that pawn.
And because of this a7 move, let's announce that we are expecting pictures of you. Where are you watching us from? I love to see those pictures. So #SpeedChess, tweet pictures of your screen, of your TV, of where you are watching us from. Because I really want to see it, and you might win a diamond membership because of those pictures.
Well, look at that. So the 5-2 portion is over, which means we have Chess 960. Nepomniachtchi wins, which brings it to only a 2-game lead currently for Levon Aronian, but Levon gets white in this Chess 960 game. Look at the pieces. The first thing you usually try to do, as you saw, Levon took about 15 seconds there. You sit there and you try to assess what's going on with the position. Since your pieces are not developed in the normal fashion, you got to develop a plan. And here we see him. What does he do? He creates this solid structure, opens up the bishop toward the king on g8, makes sense. And Nepo kind of just copies him right along the same idea, opening up his bishop toward the white king.
I love to see Chess 960, but I always want to have more time on the clock when I play it, because it just takes some time to get used to where your pieces are and what your strategy should be.
Agreed. That's one of the things that makes this so fun, is we basically are, we're playing a blitz game in a position that nobody's ever seen before, and makes it really weird. So this is getting closer and closer to looking like a normal game as compared to anything we see, though. And I mean, white is about one move away from castling, and black already does so. The way you castle in Chess 960 is you just put the king on top of the rook, and the rest is magic. It's a weird magical thing that happens. The rook and king just switch places.
Yeah, this is the weirdest thing, I think, in Chess 960. Apart from the funny-looking pieces, I see some of you in the chat saying that the board is broken. Somebody can fix it, please.
Yeah,
This is Chess 960.
Well, look at Levon, Anna. Like, he's avoiding castling, and I wonder if it's because, again, he wants to get the h-pawn involved. We've seen him obsessed with his h-pawn in many cases, and we've already referenced his big win over Nepomniachtchi as white. With an h-pawn rush, making Simon Williams proud, getting Harry involved. But I think that's why he's delayed it. And if I had to guess, if Levon can move this knight from e2 and maybe get the queen out, he might even castle long. This king could slide all the way over here, and then you're in a position where white really might still have attacking chances. So the time that's being taken now,
it was possible. Is it really how it is? So if you
all you have to do, as long as you haven't moved the king or the rook, the king has the ability to castle on either side of the board, and I'm confident that this is what Levon is thinking about, is if he can, maybe he will castle short, but as far as why he's thinking right here, it would make sense to me that he's debating whether or not to go for some sort of castles long idea. So this should be interesting, and this game counts. That's the biggest point. Right after this, we will officially have that break I've been talking about prematurely for the last 15-20 minutes, and then we'll be moving into 3-minute. But what happens on knight to g3? Let's move over to the analysis and see. I think that I'm just curious. Can we get
60 chess on an analysis board.
Okay, he goes for it. I like knight g3. He took a
He
while
did
to
play
do it.
knight g3.
But I
Once
like
again,
what
he's down on the clock.
He's down on the clock, but I like this idea, and I think that after what's happening in the game, if you can just get the queen off the back rank here, if Levon plays something like, okay, here we go.
He
This
did.
is what I was predicting. I'm expecting Levon to have found his way to do this, and if he castles long, and all of a sudden moves like knight g5 and bishop h7 are coming, this could be a very, very quickly and sort of surprisingly developed attack, and Nepo could be in trouble. Okay, he wants to trade queens. Makes sense.
That's a smart choice since danger was coming. And you can't really prevent it, because if you go back, well, you can still play queen f3 and such, but that's not the same. Your attack is nowhere.
Yeah, I almost think queen h5 was played a little too fast. In hindsight, the first move I was thinking was queen f3 first, which maybe he didn't like knight h4, some ideas. But okay, now he does have to trade queens, so that is going to ruin the idea of the mating net. I think Levon is not super thrilled with how he approached that attack, but
I wish I could see this castle queenside, because I've never really witnessed such
Right.
a long castle.
I hope we see it too. And as we were just reminded, it is the longest legal castle possible in Chess 960. The king on g1 heading over to that part of the board. Okay, you could also do it with a king on b1 heading over to h1, and he does it. We did it. We have history in the making, the longest castle possible in a Chess 960 game, and he's popping the jersey right there. Levon was popping the jersey, the Celtics jersey.
And he is still speaking, so...
I like this move, and if knight takes g2, Anna, the rook comes to g1, and when that knight moves, we've got all kinds of tactics, like knight f6 check, the pawn on g7 is pinned, and...
Yeah, not only this position is going to get dangerous, I think black, of course, shouldn't take. The position now is looking very traditional, normal chess.
Yeah, this could certainly have been a traditional game, maybe some sort of, like, classical Carol Khan or something with sides I don't know, it's something...
Here with the pan of attack, yes. b1, g1, actually, the longest castle met is in form.
b1 to g1 is actually longer because the rook only goes to f1 instead of d1. I don't know, but anyway, but yeah, as far as the king goes, that's right. G1 to c1 is not as long as b1 to g1. So that is correct. We were wrong that it's not exactly the longest castle ever. But okay, details schmeetails, as I say. Here comes h4. H4. I want Harry to play. I know Simon's watching.
Harry.
Harry the h-pawn is going to get back in.
I just seen that Mr. Morosavich was also with us. Everybody wants to see this match.
Yeah, this is a big match. I mean, on paper, as everyone said, this. A lot of people expected this to be about as close of a match as we could have in the first round. Now, of course, that ended up kind of not being the case. If you missed the Anish Giri versus Wesley So match, then you missed a real treat, as you can see over here on the left side of the bracket. That match went to overtime. It was insane. It was a tied match. Anish Giri was in control, up a game with just a couple minutes left, and Wesley So won 2 in a row to take that match home. So if you missed the Giri So, that was the best, right? The best we've seen so far. That was just so much fun. But who knows? Maybe we'll be in store for another thriller here today. All right.
G3, of course. This position is not as exciting as the previous games. I feel like this Chess 960, which usually brings out the most creative positions, in case of these two, it brought us the most boring one. I mean, I'm not complaining because this match is thrilling, but
No, you're right, though. This has not been... Usually you get like weird positions in Chess 960 where there's a queen on a8 struggling for, to get fresh air, right? I mean, here this is a normal chess position. This is 100% boring endgame. Call it a Caro-Kann, call it a Petrov. I don't know what it is, but it's not that exciting.
And I feel like they would never reach this position from normal chess. I mean, normal openings, because first of all, they don't play the Caro-Kann or Panov, or well, actually from the Queen's Gambit, you can get this position if Levon would not play Bishop f4 on second move. But yeah, they normally play much more creative, pushing the h-pawn early.
Well, Levon again down on time, though. Nepo plays knight f6 quickly, and Nepo trying to press his time advantage. A win here would bring him to within a game, and as you've been saying, if these time management struggles continue for Aronian, then a full game lead is not going to be enough in this match as the time controls get faster. So Levon definitely going to have to pick it up in the 3 minute and 1 minute. We've already established that, but what matters in this game is that Aronian is once again down 2 minutes on the clock. White's better, though. I mean, White has an edge here, right? I mean, the knight on c5 is strong. The rooks are super well placed in the center on d1 and e1. But how much of an edge is it? I mean, small at best.
Yeah, it usually compensates for the isolated pawn, which is, in this case, a structural weakness. But as you mentioned, White's pieces are very active. I would expect this to be a draw.
Agreed. Yeah, knight d5. Are we going to see a trade? No, not the light square bishop trade. The rooks come to the e file. Nepo continuing to play fast, and now Aronian almost down to 10 seconds. He's in the teens. Okay, so I think Nepo might consider a move like b6 here. Try to kick the knight. No. He plays bishop g4.
This is still too close
to be
a drawish position, but certainly with 2 minutes on the clock, you will not go for any draw.
Yeah, okay, wow. Why does f3 have to be played there? What did we miss?
What was that? Yeah, bishop g4?
Okay, duh. If rook e3, then bishop takes c5, and then d4 was just winning. Yeah, so...
Yeah, we completely missed that. The position was not as boring as it looked.
Well, after that move, the rook e2, king d2 move, Levon sort of self-trapped his rook on e2, which made this tactic happen, right?
Was a blunder.
And suddenly, it looks like what we said may indeed happen. I mean, Nepo is on his way to win this game, up a pawn with the bishop pair and up 2 minutes on the clock. Be surprised if Black doesn't come away with a victory here.
Yeah, now I guess he's just waiting in the options, which pieces shall he trade, how to be more precise, but this is looking good enough, trading one rook and then chasing the bishop away. Now it's weird on a3, and...
Yeah, we see Levon shake his head there, a little frustrated. I think at some point... Oh, and Nepo just blunders with rook to e8 and just self-pins the bishop, everybody. Rook to e8 creates the pin, and is he just losing now? He had bishop d8. He was lucky he had bishop d8. Otherwise, knight e7 check was coming, and he was losing on the spot. Okay, but he has no more than a draw, and if anything, White might be in the driver's seat. So just not his best portion of chess ever. I'm sure that Jan will express his frustration as he shakes his head and just completely blew a winning position. We were predicting the 1 game lead here. This blunder here is so far one of the biggest turning points in the match, as you can see everybody on the analysis board. Rook to e8, just a massive blunder. The bishop could not capture because the rook. Any other rook move is fine. G5, F5, any moves that sort of expand on the 3-on-2 majority would have been good for Nepo. But he blunders away this game, and he could go on to lose this. That's a 2-point swing, right? Levon goes back to a 3-game lead instead of it only being a 1-game lead.
This is incredible. It was mutual wine.
Is there another blunder? No. Yes? The
pawn
on H...
Not again.
and then Aronian just blundered. Look at that.
What's going on here?
What is going on here, everybody? G5, a nice trick, because the point is there's no en passant. Oh my gosh, and Nepo comes back and wins that game. Absolutely insane. Levon shaking his head. The players should be informed they have a 3-minute break. Wowzers. Anna, we got to back up real quick and take a quick look at that. Look at what happened here. This G5
this has
trick.
Been their worst game so far. It was, first of all, very boring. Too boring for their playing style. And second, then they both blundered pawns. First Levon with king d2.
Yeah, he blunders the pawn, and then I just want to show this trap here, everybody, after G5. A creative idea, but okay, not trapping the rook by force. Levon can play other moves like king d3 to get the rook out. But after takes h5, and suddenly the rook is trapped, there is no en passant. Remember that, because the pawn was already on h6. I thought there was en passant at first. But after the rook moves, now Black won back the exchange and went on to win the game. just a brilliant sacrifice there too to simplify into a winning king and pawn ending, because after this transition, everybody, white is just going to be losing the king and pawn ending. So even something as simple as this, black's king is closer. So a technical win, and that happened so fast, Anna, we could hardly keep up with it.
Yeah, it went way too fast and way too many mistakes. We did not see any serious blunders. Well, one or two in the previous games, and now in this one game, they made more blunders than in any other altogether.
But in the end, it comes back to a result. I guess it's sort of poetic justice or chess karma, whatever you want to call it, because in the end, I think the result was kind of the way this game started, right? I mean, Nepo was in the driver's seat as black, played pretty well, and then blundered, and he got it right back. So we have a one-game lead for Aronian. Heading into the 3-minute portion, we have our first break of the match. This match seems to be living up to the hype. I expected this to be one of the closest, and if it stays like this, we're in for some fireworks as this one gets closer.
Anna, I think that this is thrilling, and I'm seeing the chat now. So guys, make sure that you let us know what you think about the results so far, the games so far. Who is your favorite player? And who do you think shall advance and face Sergei Karyakin in the next round? Don't you think it's time for the brackets?
I think it is time to show the bracket and remind them exactly what they're playing for. So we have only a one-game lead currently for Levon Aronian as we head into the 3-minute portion. And as we've shown, the winner of this will take on Sergei Karyakin. But we have our first break, and so we are going to take that break by reminding you who's helping to make this whole thing possible. Again, it is Master Class with their class coming your way by the one and only Garry Kasparov. And who knows what insights the 13th world champion can offer there, but we're told it's just about everything you could want from him, including some secrets he's never revealed before. But what we're going to show you right now as Anna and I wait for the players to come back is another short clip and commercial, and encourage you to head over to Masterclass and pre-order the class by Garry Kasparov. You can sign up early, and here's another reminder, and let's take a look.
Check. Chess is a game of unlimited beauty, but it's not just checks and attacks. You have to be creative. Let's count it. King g5, king c2, king f6, king b3, king e7, king c4, king d6, king d5, king c7, king a6. Boom. White lost, yes? Queen takes, then knight f5, and it's a double attack. So let's go back and see what's the next logical moves. Skewer and attraction. And it's mate. What an amazing mate. I've been thinking about a few ideas that I never used. The one I want to show, this is one of my favorite openings. It's not about winning or losing, but of course at the end of the day it's about winning or losing. I'm Garry Kasparov, and this is my masterclass.
And we're back. We know it's Garry Kasparov. We know it's his master class, and we're pretty excited about that. But again, let's get things started here with the 3-2 portion. 60 minutes now remains on the clock, and game is on. Here we go. Here we go. Say that again, Anna.
I was just saying that the break was not long enough for me to chew a candy.
It's okay.
This is how tough my boss is. That's called Danny.
Chewing candies is by far the least offensive thing I've ever done on Chess TV, so don't worry about that. All right, what do we have here? We've got the 3-minute portion is underway. We now have 60 minutes in this final Blitz portion before the bullet to remind everybody. And we've had a topsy-turvy match. In the end, it's a one-game lead. Feels like that's about right, again, in terms of this sort of chess Taoism karma. And I think a 1 or 2 game lead for Levon Aronian is probably about as, he's played about 1 or 2 games better than Nepo so far. I'm sure he would like that to be a 2-game lead, but it is what it is. And now he's got to play faster in the 3-minute chess since Aronian has consistently had less time than his Russian opponent.
I agree with you that I think it's justified, this +1 score. They switched openings, if you see that now. This is the Spanish, but the so-called Cozio defense. So this G6 setup against the Spanish. It's not so much seen on top-level chess, but now that we are getting to shorter time controls, we are expecting more offbeat variations.
Yeah, this is weird. This is an obscure variation of the Spanish, and I was about to say that.
But look at that! What a fork, a triple fork.
Yeah, I was about to say I like white, and I like the opening of the light squares, and I may still like white. The opening of the light squares just seems to me like will end up being compensation for white in terms of losing the rook. But I admit that I looked at it quickly as we came back from the break, and I didn't see knight d2 coming. But still, this seems to be a super unclear position. I'm not sure if Aronian. I'm not sure if Nepo sacked that exchange or if it was a blunder. It looks like a sack because it looks like he's got a lot of compensation.
It does look like, and Levon is smiling.
Yeah, he might be talking. Maybe he's talking to Ariane or a friend of his or something. He maybe talking about how he needs to get rid of that chandelier behind him, remodel that house because this is no longer acceptable to have those kinds of devices hanging from the ceiling. No, I don't know what he's talking about, but maybe he just likes to talk to himself when he actually has the opportunity.
It's interesting to see them on the webcam because this is not something you see often. We see them at so many super tournaments, but they know how to behave at a super tournament. Now they can do whatever they want. They are at home. I think I lost Danny, so I'll keep talking. I love this format.
No, you didn't lose me.
Because of the webcams.
No, you didn't lose me at all. Sorry, I was just... I know whenever Danny doesn't talk for 30 seconds, I know people immediately assume there's a technical glitch, right? If I'm not running my mouth, then there must be something wrong. But no, I am here. Okay, Queen e5 comes in. So after Bishop e6 check, how do you continue the attack if you're running the light squares? Rook e1 feels supernatural.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I'd also like to bring my knight in if I could if this was Bughouse. Well, first of all, Levon would love that because we know Aronian is a huge Bughouse fan. But if it was Bughouse, we'd be dropping a pony on g6 right now and it'd be over. So this knight would love to find a way to relocate itself somehow over to the king's side of the board to help the attack. Now I've lost Anna. No.
I was thinking.
See what happens when you think and you don't talk? No, I'm kidding. All right,
it's
G3.
difficult to think and talk at the same time.
That's literally what I do. That's the only skill I possess. I'm already thinking about the next thing I'm going to... No, I'm kidding. All right, so G3 is played. I think it was played, Anna, with the purpose of supporting F4 because of this G6 idea I'm talking about. I think he wants to play knight E2 and then bring the knight around to F4 and head to G6. But whoa, that's a pin on F2. That rook is pinning the F2 pawn, everybody, which means that...
Ooh, and not just that, because then if you take on c3, queen d3 is a fork.
Yeah, I think knight e4 is the move. Knight e4 stops everything.
Queen d3?
Oh, queen d3, duh.
Yeah, bishop f5, only way to prevent it. But I don't believe in this defense.
But what's strange is after queen to d2, here comes queen to g6.
Yeah, what's going on?
Oh, I see. If queen to g6, I think he can take on f5 and then rook f8, skewering the queen and the pawn on f2.
Yeah, beautiful. That is the threat. Rook takes f5 right now. And how do you prevent that? I think white is lost.
Yeah, Nepo's certainly having trouble thinking about it. Okay, he heads to e2, which is good enough to stop the queen from attacking the f2 pawn.
I don't know. Queen takes d5, threatens the bishop and threatens queen h1. Well, not a mate, but it's looking very unpleasant.
Yeah, you can play.
Has went wrong a few moves ago.
I agree. I think that maybe even the bishop e6 check was a little unnecessary, or even this g3 idea, as much as I'd like the idea of making that square available to the knight, was just too slow. I don't know that white's ever going to get this plan, but don't give up on it yet, right? If this knight comes into f4, the tables could turn quickly in this one because black's light squares are so incredibly weak. Okay, so queen takes d5. If bishop e4, queen c5, I expect is the move Aronian had prepared. Oh no, he goes for the rook. I thought queen c5 would be played because it threatens mate on f2, but he wants to keep taking pawns, being a greedy guy here, greedy Ganesh.
Well, maybe greedy on purpose so that you cannot take the rook on a8 because the b1 rook was also hanging.
Yeah.
Now he's got everything. He's got more material and a nice position, but once again, down on the clock.
So he checks and finds a combination.
Rook
but
f4.
No, he didn't miss this intermezzo. Wow, that happened super fast.
It did.
Okay, he gets this check. He will then give a check with the queen. but is there mate? No, checking with the queen on d5. If bishop e4, you have queen d2 check. So Levon is not mated, but you can see he's stressed. He's leaning in and he's pulling on his hair a little bit. Okay, he ends up settling on this move, queen g8. Not their favorite square, but she does serve a purpose, which is preventing mate in 1, everybody. What's going on here, Anna? I'm losing it.
This is certainly not the position that Levon was aiming for. He is still material up. He's got 2 pawns up, but with the queen on g8, this isn't that easy.
Yeah, and he can't move the bishop from
g6,
g7 because then...
1 pawn.
Because h6 falls, right? He can't move the bishop on g7 as much as he would like to.
Yeah, look at that. White is taking all the pawns he can. Now it's equal material. The queen can move, finally, threatening queen f2 check.
Yeah, here comes the f-file. The f-file is coming. The f-file is coming. Maybe even queen f2 right away just to threaten the g3
queen f2,
pawn.
queen g6 again.
Ah, that's right. Yeah, and Levon is struggling to find what he can do without the constant worry of... Oh, but that's got to help. If that bishop is off the diagonal, at least there's no more mate coming.
Yeah, and it was forced after queen d7. That was a nice move, threatening the h3 pawn and also queen d2 if king goes to the second rank. Now it's black who has taken the initiative, and with this queen on the second rank and rook f2 coming. But it's still not so easy, actually, because if you leave the back rank, then there's queen c8 or queen a8 check.
Yeah, this is a classic opposite code bishop struggle, right? The point, everybody, is if it's all about the light squares, white is basically up a piece and mating. If it's all about the black squares, then black is happily defending and maybe even launching his own attack. This is and here come more dark square problems for white. So
yeah, and those pawns gone on the queen side now. It's clearly black who is in charge.
So he's willing to sack h6, or did he miss h6?
Whoa, look at that!
Because bishop comes to d5. What did he? We were just, I mean, obviously rook e6 had the specific intention of threatening this, and Levon has to go for this now, and he's down on time. He's got to play more quickly, and he lost on time.
Whoa. And
that was strange.
But rook f7, in worst case, it's a queen endgame with a pawn up, but not a loss.
Yeah, well, he seems frustrated with his time management there. Levon a little frustrated with what happened. Not sure.
He doesn't really understand what happened. I think he didn't see his clock running low.
Yeah. Well, that's frustrating. Now he's taking too much time there. I think Levon a little frustrated, maybe worried that he had some sort of glitch or something, or maybe he had slow internet for the moment. I'm not sure what happened there, but
he's saying that he's disconnected for a second, so that's why he lost on time.
Well, we have to have. Is he no longer online right now, or does he know the game has started? I'm not sure he knows the game has started.
Yeah, I don't think he knows that there's a new game, and he's already 1 minute below on the clock.
Yeah, we'll that game was...
That's a new game, yep.
I'm not sure what happened there. Technical difficulties for both players here. Levon losing on time, and with it we had a tie match. But... the games must continue. The players need to continue to play as they're losing their chance. All right. Is the next game started yet?
Not yet. I think there's just a small issue with the disconnection.
Is Levon still disconnected? I'm trying to ask my my teammates right now.
Well, while we are waiting for Levon to come back online, make sure that you tweet us using the hashtag #SpeedChess. Send us the pictures that we asked for. You know that I love those pictures. Photos of your screen, your laptop, your computer, your phone, your TV. Where are you watching us from? And let us know also the city, the country. I love to see that the whole world is tuning in for this epic battle between Nepomniachtchi and Aronian. Tweet us using the hashtag #SpeedChess. Is Levon back?
Good time for social. I'm not sure. He seems to be disconnected, but we're not exactly sure what's going on here. So we are trying to make sure we get this figured out. Let's give it 1 moment here, everybody, and let me figure out what's going on with the team. And we'll be right back. It looks like we have liftoff once again. Players are back. So far, maybe, possibly. We are.
Oh, they also gave me 1 forfeit. They also gave me 1 forfeit.
Looks like yes, we did have to give Levon a forfeit for the time spent. And we are underway. That's what matters, is the match is back on the road. But okay, still waiting for things to get aligned here properly. Just yours truly, flying solo currently without Anna. And right now the score has now turned after that big win for Nepomniachtchi with the time thing and Levon getting disconnected. He was unable to get his internet issues figured out in time for a full game to start. And so now he has also a forfeit loss to go with that. That is part of the rules. It's unfortunate when we have to do that. But the rules are, if someone is disconnected for too long, then they lose based on the amount of total game clock that has gone by. We voted on 1 forfeit win, given trying to be as merciful as possible for Levon's internet issues. But anyway, unfortunately, that is the story, and now we are back. The show is back on the road here, with Levon back in the live server. The game is started. What do we have here? We have another one of these weird perks, and Levon is white. Seems to be better in this one, from what I can see. And Anna, I think we have you back with us.
I believe I'm back. Apologies. I also had some technical issues, as well as Levon Aronian. And now the score is... What is the score, Danny?
One game for Nepo. It was a 1 forfeit game, as I just explained to the fans, even though it's disappointing that Levon was punished because he wasn't able to get back online in time. That is the match rules, unfortunately. If too much time goes by because you're unable to get your own internet issues right, there's not much else we can do besides provide a forfeit loss, as the total game clock continued to tick that entire time. And Nepo, having won 1 game to tie the match, he was delivered 1 forfeit win, which is why you see the match score different than the scores next to their avatars there. But a 1-game lead for Nepomniachtchi. Aronian seems to be back in fine form, though, stretching and shaking off his loss and forfeit loss. He's not happy about that, but unfortunately is a rule that we had to maintain. And here we go. I think Nepo is much worse in this position, though, so we'll see if Levon ends up striking back and getting a win.
I agree with you, Danny, that this is going to be tough for Levon, but he shall come back with this game. He's got good chances. I see Ben is here with us in the chat. Hi, Ben. Hi, everyone here on Chess.com TV. Keep those nice comments coming, and also the not so nice ones. I usually prefer the nice ones, though.
Yeah, that's the internet for you, right? Nice and not so nice comments. I think that's the best way to describe it. Nice and not so nice. All right, well, Aronian is up pawn, right? Oh, no, it's equal material, but I guess it seemed like he had a majority based on this bind he has over here on the queen side. And currently, I guess white has to debate, how do I get the b6 pawn? Can I eliminate this knight and go gobble the pawn? But in the end of those lines, black ends up equalizing right back. So Aronian trying to build on that bind. Rook to d1 defends the d5 pawn and the d4 bishop. And at some point, I expect we will see something's going to break, something's got to give, as they say, and Aronian's pressure on the queen side looks like it's going to build to some sort of material advantage, but I don't see a concrete way for white to move forward yet either. I
don't see it either, and I hope you guys are not hearing that there's storm about to begin right where I am. Apologies if there's any sound effect for this position. F5, look at that. There goes the storm.
Yeah, that's a storm. I can't hear the storm yet on your end, so hopefully the fans can't hear it either. But F5, it seems a little desperate, though. I think it's the kind of move Black plays because there really wasn't much else to do in this position, right? I mean, Black's pieces are really stuck to the back rank, and he's sort of waiting. But okay, Aronian, on what? Maybe with desperate or not, it does look like it's given some new life to the position. We are now being hosted by someone right there on Twitch, so thanks for that. Jake5789, whoever your channel is. All right, the knight comes into F4. That's a super strong move. The knight's coming into E6, and white has a huge advantage in this position. In fact, now we have another hosting person, so one person host leads to another. Lots of people hosting our stream all of a sudden. Thanks for that. All right, the white knight's going to pop into E6 here, and I think that black continues to be in big trouble here. Aronian is eager for revenge after being frustrated with how those last couple games went.
That's very reasonable, I think, to be upset and now go for a killing move, a killing attack. And that's what he's doing, having two rooks for the queen. And this queen on b7 is very unfortunate. If white could place the other rook on the a file, and suddenly it would be very much a game over, and that's what's happening.
Yeah, and you saw another person now hosting us. Thanks for that. Little sound effects disrupting our flow. Didn't expect so many to come in, but yeah, keep the hosting coming. You see Levon switching over here to the a file, and the reason why as we move over to some analysis, we can actually see that one of the main reasons why that d5 pawn was not capturable, everybody, is because the king was trapped over there and in a mating net. That's why you saw this move g5, and here comes. But f4 gets out. Suddenly he's created a situation where the king can get out, which certainly going to make this much harder to
nice
convert
check,
on.
but after king g7, oh, now comes the rook. This is looking still lost for black, but there's no immediate win.
Yeah. I'm looking for a mating net here for white, and I don't see it. And if that d5
yeah, you wish
pawn
you had your
falls,
pawn on
then,
h5, and then it would be all solved, but you cannot get it there.
Yeah. Crazy.
So Nepomniachtchi is still hanging on.
I have never seen so many people suddenly start to host us at once. So for those of you who are a little irritated by the sound jingle, we're trying to figure that out right now and get it turned off. But pretty funny. Thank you for the dozens of people who are suddenly hosting our channel. And that's great. That's great. Thanks for doing that. Although now I'm really trying to turn it off so that we don't continue to be buzzed with that. All right. Where's the attack coming from? Knight e6 check. Are we going to get another draw after a sharp game and just a repeat of moves? No. Aronian is trying for more, but he doesn't have much time on the clock, and we've already seen him lose on time.
Look at that active king. King d3.
King d3. Rook f8's a nice move. He's preparing to maybe sack on f7 and do a fork with the king and queen. Doesn't quite have the concrete way to do it right away, but very nice. He's going to win the d6 pawn, it looks like, and after that, the queen is almost trapped. So Aronian completely winning in this position. I mean, the only thing that could go wrong for him in this one so far would probably be the clock. So if he doesn't get himself in that position again where the clock becomes a factor, he should be doing fine.
Now, will he get mated on the other side of the board?
Whoa. Did he just blunder? And he did.
My.
And it's queen h1 mate. No, not mate. He had rook h3,
Rook
which I didn't see.
h3, but this is definitely... Oh, now it is. Queen g4 next move.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Mate. Aronian frustrated with himself. That was not a game that he wanted to lose. Completely crushing in that one. and unfortunately lets it slip. And so this match has really turned around right now. We have a 7.5, 5.5 score for Nepomniachtchi, which has just been a huge turn of events, given that we were talking about a 3-game lead for Aronian toward the end of the 5-minute portion. He loses a game, then loses a game on time, then, and with the loss on time, we assume was associated with his sort of bad internet issues. He restarted his PC, which was something we were dealing with him privately, and he was forfeited a game because of the time away, which we hate to do that, but that's part of the game. So, and then with that loss, he's down 2 games. Anna, this thing is completely turned around.
Well, I still can't believe it, and I'm sure that Levon cannot believe it either. He was leading with 2 points in the main part, and he lost the last game, but still he was entering the 3-minute portion with a 1-point lead, and now he's just 2 points behind.
Yep, well, he's going to have to turn things around, right? That's what happens in these matches, and there's still plenty of time left for this thing to come down to the wire. And we'll see what happens in this game here. We have another Spanish with an accelerated A4 line. This position seems like one we see in top-level chess regularly. Black bringing the knight from D7, heading over here to B6. And
yeah, this is their usual variation, much more seen on top-level chess than the previous one that we witnessed, the Cosio defense. I'm just wondering if Levon Aronian can pull himself together, because I think psychologically he lost track of this match. He was just so much superior to Jan in the first games, and then this disconnection, he got frustrated. He needs to calm himself down somehow.
Yeah, I agree, and it's hard to, right? I mean, that's one of the advantages we always talk about in tournament chess, is you just don't know what's going to happen in a short time span like this, where you're playing dozens of games. In a tournament, if you have a game like this that maybe something terrible happens, doesn't go your way, you have plenty of time to take a seat back and refresh yourself, take a walk, maybe even you have a rest day and kind of clear your mind. But in a match like this, things don't go your way. Before you know it, you get forfeited a game because of your bad internet, and now you're really psychologically frustrated with the whole thing, which we understand. But we know Aronian is a strong player, and we'll see if he can get himself back in the match mentally.
He has to. It's just not over. There's so many games left, and he's such a strong player. This has been his year. He has been dominating at most of the super tournaments, so I believe that he can do it. He's very strong mentally as well. He just needs to really forget what happened with the disconnection and start from zero.
In this game, he's down 2 pawns. And
how did he do that?
I don't even know. I don't like his position.
He lost track of the game.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and we've kind of confirmed that unfortunately it was sort of lag issues, it seemed, from Levon and meaning his own connection, unfortunately. But as we said, he restarted his computer. We hope that he doesn't have further internet issues that it would affect his play in this match. So let's hope that that's not the case for Levon, and that we have a match that's decided only on the board. So, all right. He's up the exchange for 2 pawns. That's what we didn't see as we're distracted. So he's got the rook, but white does have 2 pawns for it. So
what is going on right now? So queen b5 threatening the d3 pawn, bishop c4 is of course very logical. But look at those funny pawns in the center.
Yeah, no, there's way too many pawns in the center to be happy about. But the plan here, everybody, if you're black, is to do just that, is to simplify the structure and then try to use the rooks, right? You got to use the rooks on the open files. Now, if white can get this bishop to d4, holding the biggest weakness on b2 protected, you may even see white get an attack with something like the bishop and the queen lining up on the dark square. So I think white is actually better here. And did he just miss bishop c5? Forking the rooks? No, there was rook a2. Okay. I think despite the extra exchange, I think white is actually in control because of the pawns. But if you are playing with the rooks in these positions, you want to kind of simplify and open up as many avenues for the rooks to outplay the bishop. Oh, but look at that. The c7 pawn is coming under fire. And if that pawn falls, these 2 pawns are just going to run up the board. Not going to be fun.
Yeah, this is really unpleasant. And if you have to play rook e7, then things are not going well. if he takes on e4 after bishop takes c7, the d pawn is very strong. But what you can try to do maybe is to create some kind of a perpetual net, like attacking the f2 pawn, giving a check, taking on f2, and then attacking on g2. Just try to make a draw.
Right. If you go for something like this, white can maybe stop the g2 pawn, but I was looking at a similar line, and I agree. This might be key, and the question is, can black hold this position with these two pawns? I'm going to guess that the answer is no, and it's really dangerous for black to go for that. But we will see. Levon is certainly calculating it, and unfortunately, once again, he finds himself way down on the clock, and that's been the story of the match so far. I mean, obviously, with the internet issues that Levon had and having to forfeit a game because his computer had to restart, it's, but if you take away that, I mean, really the story of the match has been Levon taking more time than his opponent, consistently under time pressure, despite playing, I think a higher quality brand of chess. I mean, I think Levon has played better, and I think Nepo has made more blunders, but that's why it's Blitz, and he's been down on time, and it hasn't been the best for Levon today.
I agree with you that we have seen a very good level of chess, of course, excellent level from Levon Aronian. Nepomniachtchi made much more mistakes, but played way faster. And in 3-minute games, this is already a critical factor, and he might lose the game again because of that.
And already you see things like bishop takes c7 maybe coming, right? And just a bunch of passed pawns going nuts. I mean, bishop takes c7 here. Let's see what happens. If you take and just sack, usually two pawns on the 6th rank can outplay a rook. Nepo doesn't go for it, mainly because he probably doesn't have to. He just takes f5, but at some point, I think this pawn that's a real line to worry about if you're black. Now you better run the king over, and this is looking like, again, another victory for Nepomniachtchi. So the train is coming off the track, as they say. If you're Levon Aronian, he needs to strike back in the next game, stop the bleeding, and get back on the board.
Look at that. He's still trying to defend. Now he protected the c7 pawn, and the f5 pawn is hanging. This is still not game over.
It seems
d6.
Like it.
That might be. But at least you don't have connected pass pawns.
Doesn't that just hang the c6 pawn?
Oh, he did?
That was weird.
Yes, it was.
Oh, he's got some sort of idea of transitioning over. Okay, so he transitions to just winning the kingside pawns. Nepo does, and he's still much better. Now he's going to have 3 passers, which is, owie. That's a lot of passed pawns. He takes with the h-pawn, actually, maybe even better to kind of keep the inch worm together where the pawns can really hold down the fort from checks, and Aronian says he's had enough and just resigns. So frustrating for Levon Aronian to have such a quick turnaround. The match is still far from over. Nepo was down 3 games and came back. Levon now finds himself in the same situation.
I'm just writing down the score so that we can ask them about these games after the match, but I'm shocked. I really expected Aronian leading the 3-minute portion as well, and I thought that Nepomniachtchi would take the bullet. But now it's going to be a different story.
Yep. No,
and I'm worried about Levon.
Well, it seems that Levon is, he's on his heels right now. I mean, this has been a rough last half an hour for him, starting with the internet issues, continuing with his play on the board right now. He's got to find a way to stop the bleeding and strike back. Nepo kind of feeling a little relaxed. You can see he's got a bit of a puppy dog face sometimes, that Nepomniachtchi, right? Just kind of, but okay. So Levon and Nepo both seem to be pretty relaxed. I think Levon is just trying to find himself and let go of the previous disaster and refocus his efforts.
So this has been Nepomniachtchi's 6th win, is that?
Is that 6 wins in a row?
Yeah, I believe.
But five on the board, right? 1 forfeit.
Yeah, 5 plus 1. 6
5 plus 1
points scored in a row.
I mean, psychologically, things really started to go badly for Levon after he lost that Chess 960 game, right? He blundered away the winning position in a couple of moves, and the next game ended up losing on time. But still, it was kind of the beginning of not going well. Although here this one does seem to be better for him, but we've seen him not be able to convert a couple times. This is a very dangerous position for black when you look at that king on g8 here, and and the potential of tactics on the diagonal. But
So
okay,
if
no
knight
concrete
f6
threats for
wants
white
to
just
give up
yet.
the rook and then take on c4, he would have had two minor pieces. That's why knight f6 did not work, but it's still looking very pleasant for Levon after rook e1. All sorts of tactics, because he's threatening to take on e6 and then jump away with the knight, winning the queen.
So there was no knight takes c7 last move?
Maybe it was possible. Yes, knight c7.
And then if takes on c4, you take with check.
Yeah, you're right.
What in the world? I mean, I feel
Yeah,
like Levon is...
he missed it. He missed it. But maybe rook e1. This is still
very
going
dangerous,
to work.
but I'm just looking at I mean, it's like knight takes c7 is just winning. I mean, I was pausing there silent because I couldn't believe it, but
Yeah,
okay,
but
he may
look
go.
at this.
It looks
I mean,
like
he's winning once again with this knight
Okay.
c7 maneuver.
I guess so. I guess we expect this to be, with knight takes c7 coming, it seems to be still a lot of trouble for black. But I mean, I was sitting there, and we assumed technical difficulties because something actually made Danny be quiet. But you know what? I couldn't believe it because knight takes c7, I'm pretty sure was just winning for Levon. So if he doesn't get this one, we know there's problems there psychologically. Really having troubles rebounding right now.
Actually, knight f6 is also winning. Isn't it like every move is winning? Knight f6 or knight c7?
I think he's just debating how he wants to skin the proverbial cat here. Knight takes c7 seems to be the easiest because if you move, you can just take f7 with check, and then probably you're winning a whole rook. So unless there's something I'm missing, knight takes c7. No, he goes for this. He goes for winning the queen. Okay. So he probably calculating this deeper than either of us. Not probably, likely, but white should still go on to win this, and Aronian should still be striking back. But some strange tactics there over the last few moves.
So the rook has to be protected with rook e8, and then he might want to take on b7. That's what's happening now. Knight e7. This is lost for black, but it's not completely hopeless.
Yeah, it's not completely hopeless, and we've seen him hold other tricky positions. So Aronian doesn't want to blow this one for sure. We'll see how he turns the tables and strikes back here. We saw him. I mean, that position with the two rooks, right? He had the two rooks for the queen, and he was crushing in that one and got himself mated. So, again, we're harping on the same point, but it's because that's been the story of the last half an hour of the match. Aronian sort of just beating himself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he should win this game. He's up a queen, but if he doesn't win this one, right? Big trouble.
Well, let's hope that for Levon's sanity that he's gonna win this one, and then we will have him back. Because this would be way too much if he doesn't win this game.
Okay, well, seemingly still pretty relaxed. Nepo relaxed. It's easy to be relaxed if you're Nepo up 3 games here. But this game has some technique left to be had. And again, I still think, I wonder if knight takes c7 earlier was more clear. But, okay, it's hard to imagine white not winning this game. There's no real threats here for black. I mean, can white kind of just push one of these passers?
Yeah, he can. He just has to be careful with some tricks because the knight is still on the board, but there cannot be anything serious.
Queen c5 was a nice trick, by the way, because what he's doing is putting his eyes on the rook, and if the I'll just say, so if the black rook had moved to try to follow through with a plan of rook e7 to e1, white would have had rook takes d4, and the knight couldn't take it anymore because the e7 rook would have been hanging. So queen c5 was a nice little trick. But Nepo not giving up on his idea of coordinating the rooks on the first rank. Rook to d3 is probably good enough, though, because if rook takes h2, you can just trade rooks on h3, and then the a-pawn is still a lot to handle. Okay,
yeah, or rook
does the
e2,
same
getting rid of one of the rooks is crucial, so there's no danger of getting mated. But knight e3, maybe your idea was better, but now knight e3, still, there are some tricks.
Yeah, it hasn't been a simple win. I mean, okay, now g4 also seems to be winning here, but then rook f1 would have been a problem.
But this is not simple. It just...
And Nepo has done this already a couple times. Okay, he's lost a couple times playing out these positions just being down, but he seems to have an attitude of playing the games out as long as possible, and I think maybe it's part of his overall strategy to get to bullet, Anna, just that he just thinks he'll be better in the bullet, because I don't know that anything else really explains. He's played a lot of these sort of lost positions out long, and this one I think he has chances, but overall his attitude seems to be willing to keep playing even if he's worse.
Yeah, and I think it's paying out for him, because now after this trade, knight check, well, he can still hope for some kind of a perpetual.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Queen coming back, so to avoid rook f4.
Yeah, but now that white king's going to get to d3, and it's over. It's red rover as soon as that king gets to d3.
Yeah, now this is it. But
even
Levon had
A5
some
there, I
tough
think,
time
was...
getting out of the tricks of Nepomniachtchi.
Yeah, I think even a5 was winning there if he had to give the queen for the knight, because I think a6... Oh, never mind, he could stop it. That would have been a way to blunder the game. All right, but now it's over. Nepo agrees. He throws in the towel, and Aronian has officially stopped the runaway train for the time being, and it's nice to see a recovery win, regardless of who you're rooting for. And we have a close match still, ladies and gentlemen.
So it's 6.5, 8.5, if my score is correct. And it should be. How much time is left in total from the 3-minute portion?
Right now, it looks like we have a total of 15 minutes left, so not much time left, but probably at least one more game after this, right? And so now we have one of these sort of weird Lopez's with the a6 knight g7 line. Yeah, 15 minutes left before the chess 960 game. Then we have our break, and then we have 1 minute.
Yeah, it seems that Levon Aronian prepared this Cosio defense, knight e7 and g6 setup, especially for this match against Nepomniachtchi. He usually doesn't play this. He plays the Spanish with black, but he doesn't go for these kind of openings normally. I hear myself twice. I hope you guys don't, but actually I will use earphones in that case. Okay, this should be better. So I was talking about the opening. It's not an opening that you usually see at top level chess, playing with knight e7, g6. It's actually a very interesting opening. You see that it's a completely different setup from the usual Spanish openings. It's risky, of course. That's why they don't usually play it on elite level, and also it's not supposed to be the most, how to put it? It's kind of dubious, it's this opening. But for a Blitz game, I think this is certainly something that even top grandmasters want to try. Rook e1 has been the last move of Nepomniachtchi. You see that black still hasn't castled, and he's not worried about the king. He just takes the pawn on d4. The question is there anything concrete against black's king, or he will just be a pawn down? Knight takes d4. Next move will be a capture on f3, destroying white's pawn structure. I like black here, unless there's something immediate, which would be like bishop e4, bishop c6 afterwards when the knight goes away from d4. This is looking good. Of course, he has to avoid immediate danger. Rook c8, knight takes, and then bishop. Whoa, knight takes, offering the queen. So that what's going on here? What is this? I mean, knight takes d4, offering the queen on d1. I just can't believe what's happening. So this sacrifice was in order to place the knight on c6 and create some counter chances against the e7 knight, targeting the king on e1. But I just can't believe that this queen sacrifice would work.
Yeah, I don't understand where the mate's coming from, and a queen is a lot of material.
Yeah, look at that, Danina. Bishop c6. What is this?
Well, yeah, and there was ideas possibly of bishop to e5, but then the c6 bishop would have been hanging, and so now we've got... But after the rook moves, there'll be a move like bishop e5 coming, and it looks like black is going to be losing back a lot of the material. This has been a really, really interesting attack by Nepo, and honestly, the sack looks like it might work out. He's going to get a lot of material back as soon as the bishop comes to e5.
I wonder how much of this he has calculated in the moment of sacrificing his queen. He surely saw something. You don't just give up your queen like that. But it didn't feel like it was such a correct sacrifice at first.
Yeah, and according to our teammate who keeps an engine running so that we don't have to, he says, according to the engine, white is winning here.
Oh.
Will white win is another story, but it looks like he is going to gobble up the rook on h8 and have a ton of compensation for the queen. Okay, f6 is interesting to try to keep that bishop trapped, but it seems super risky at the same time. I mean, now the e6 square is available for the white rook to come in at some point. If I'm white, I think a simple plan also, instead of h4, was just to play a move like bishop f5, offer the trade of rooks, and then my rook is coming into the d file, creating a mating net against the black king. So it looks like Nepo's going to take this one. So striking back immediately, I really don't see Levon coming back in this game. Already, white has a ton of material for the queen, and his king is in tons of danger.
I agree with you that this is looking now an easy win for Nepomniachtchi. Can we bring up the analysis board and show once again the moment where he sacked the queen?
Yeah, absolutely. And so in the position here, after the move knight takes d4, where he just says, see you later, and then knight to c6. So he gets one minor piece, and then avoids losing another one by bringing the knight to c6 with tempo on the queen. And then as the smoke clears, it's just really open roads and open tactics for white. I mean, it was open season, and now it's open season on the black king. So black ends up getting back the bishop on h8, but and in fact, Nepo actually really messed that up. I thought he was just infiltrating on the 8th ring. So as we backed up to show the queen sack, unfortunately we missed a critical moment. I think rook d5 was just a bad move. Honestly, I think he just thought that bishop e6 check would have been winning the rook. But rook d5 instead of just bishop f5, which was the move I was saying for a while, I think was winning for white.
But it seems that he still has good chances. Well, of course, this is not what he wanted. He's shaking his head. At some point, both players were shaking their heads, so it's a funny situation where nobody's happy with their position.
Right. Not surprising, nobody's happy with this position. Levon not happy with how he played the opening. Nepo feels like he should have already won this game, and but we're still playing. That's what matters.
Rook d7. All right, now he's threatening mate. And that's it. No checks.
Yeah, there was no way to deal with the threat of rook d8 and rook h8. And so with that, Aronian resigns, and we wait for the next game to start. Okay. Well, Aronian back with the white pieces, hoping to strike back again.
And once again, this bishop f4, beautiful move. Transposing to a Pirc defense.
Yep.
Actually, black didn't play d6. He's inventing a new way of facing e4.
Yeah,
this is looking funny.
Well, this is an obscure line. I mean, black can play this way. I've seen it before, but you know, Aronian taking the most aggressive approach possible, driving the h-pawn. But with the queens traded, you don't expect black to get checkmated on the king side.
So the queens are off of the board, but white's position is still pleasant because he's got so much space, and after h6, you have to go back to h8 with your bishop. The e5 pawn is the biggest problem of black. It's not allowing your pieces to develop well, like knight f6, knight d6 moves, and blocking the bishop on h8.
And because of that, he's going to take on f3 and take on e5 as we see him doing. But
yeah, if you can take the pawn, then it's okay.
Yeah, I wonder if Levon either underestimated this idea. One way that you sometimes try to defend the e5 pawn is with ideas like the knight on c3 coming into d5 to hit e7. That didn't happen here. I've played variations like this from the white side of the perk, which are also, they're always on the edge of white either kind of crushing black or what you see here where black is kind of taking apart the center. So now Levon has to kind of figure out a way to justify the loss of his e5 pawn.
I'm not sure he has a way. He's thinking how could he do that, but... Okay, he took and now takes back the pawn. Yeah, maybe this was actually the best way, but the b2 pawn will fall also, so this isn't really just a trade of pawns.
Yeah, what's interesting is once the b2 pawn falls, black's rook is going to get a ton of counterplay, so white has to find some way to... That's why he played f4, and that's why he's going to move his bishop now to maybe gain a tempo on the knight. He's going to try to find a way to make a mess of things so that black can't just gobble up the pawn on b2 so easily and move forward.
What shall he do now after knight c4? I mean, of course, you had to retreat with the bishop, but after the capture on b2, I like black. I know it's still passive with the knight on e8 and the rook on f8, but I'm greedy. Okay,
Yeah.
knight e5. Knight e5, that's good.
Knight d5 is good, but I agree. I was going to say I think that black can give up the pawn now, and then the e file may become something that black can use here pretty shortly. So I also like black. I don't think white got what he wanted to get with that investment in the opening, running the h pawn. But the biggest thing about the position to me continues to be the time. I mean, we don't talk about it so early normally because we wait till it's obvious, but again, you can just see it creeping away, right? Nepo just seems to be a little faster, and Aronian consistently behind on the clock in a tough position. So
Rook a2. So once again, it's a pawn up for black, and the a pawn is going forward.
yeah, now if you're white, you have to decide. Do you want to find a way to go after the c7 pawn, moves like knight d5, or is there something with bishop to d5? You have an outside shot if you're white here and at a mating net, right? I mean, the black king is not ideal on h8 with the pawn on h6 and with the potential if white could get access to the 8th rank. So if you're white here, maybe you want to look for moves like f5. You want to try to maybe open up some chances for your pieces to come to life against the black king on h8. And this is what he's doing. The rook comes to d7. I kind of been thinking that f5 needed to be played even before. There's a threat now, rook a1 check and then knight g4 check, so I got to watch out for that. I think maybe rook f3 is the best move.
Yeah, but then the c2 pawn will be unprotected. It's not so easy to deal with this threat without dropping more material.
Mm-hmm.
And the
With
problem
the rook on the 7th rank and the potential threats there, you just have a hard time believing that white is really going to be worse, again, besides his time. I mean, like rook f3, even knight takes c2 if you traded, and then 1 c7. I mean, there's so many threats on the 7th rank here that could be looming.
Oh, he's picking up the h6 pawn. That was restricting his king's mobility. That was smart, not going for the c2 pawn. Just
Yeah,
now,
for
the
sure.
knight on h6 is not very well placed, so it had its drawbacks as well. He was threatening to capture on e7 and knight f5 check, winning back the material and winning a piece. That's why Levon went for f5.
But it was strange, right, with f5, because
Yeah.
rook takes f6, rook takes e7 is going to head to a better rook and pawn ending for black. Okay, he doesn't go for it.
What did he want there? Rook c8 check, knight g8.
Yeah, rook c8, knight g8, and black was fine. He's got something better. Wants to bring the knight into g4 and try to continue the attack. Has to be careful because white's going to come to d2 with the king, and if Nepo ends up not getting enough of an attack, then he may still be under fire himself. I'm surprised by that. I agree. I think he should have just traded on e7 back a few moves ago, and now there may still be some attacking chances for white.
Maybe he wanted to be too tricky. Normally,
Oh,
it's good
he
to
just
keep
missed
the
rook takes
knights on the board.
d6. Rook take. Oh no, there's no rook takes d6. Duh, because the knight's not coming to e4 check. I was hallucinating. Knight to e4 is a fork.
There are problems here. Now for black.
Yeah, it should still be, I think,
A draw.
just a draw, and they agree. Yeah,
Exactly.
and so I don't know. We're both a little bewildered, it seems, by some of the moves that were happening there. But there's still time for one more 3-minute game before they move into the Chess 960, which, if you're Levon Aronian, is definitely good because you need time to get back in the match. And here they go.
And thanks to Mike, we know the stats always. We are very up to date. Only 4 draws have been played in 17 games in this match.
That's a pretty high percentage of decisive games. I wonder where that ranks as far as the all-time decisive matches in our Speed Chess Championship. But there's been a lot of decisive games.
Another Roy Lopez, now the traditional variation, no Cosio this time.
Yeah, we've seen this before, but again, now here comes A5. Yeah, we already saw this line, and I thought it was better for Nepomniachtchi when he, if we remember, that was the game where we brought the bishop to G5 as white, captured on F6, and eventually had some dominance over the light squares. So I feel like that was a better one for black, but maybe Aronian thought that was fine. So better for white, but Aronian goes for it again. Okay, now E4 is hanging. Okay, but no, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not. I don't even know. We can't calculate fast enough. All right.
That's count material, Danny. Now it's a pawn up for black, but the knight from A2 is not coming out.
Yeah, that was a super risky line there.
It was.
For Levon. He's up on time, which is rare, right? He's got time. But that knight on A2, this is exactly what you try to avoid, right? That is not an ideal knight for sure.
No, it's not. He has to somehow prevent losing it, but how do you do that? I mean, Rook A1 would pin the knight. Rook B1 perhaps even better because you don't want to step into some Rook A1 Bishop F6 move.
Right.
But after Rook A4, yeah, maybe he's making it.
Yeah, he's holding onto the pawn so far. Nepo unable to fully punish that knight on the rim.
Yeah, what about now? Either Bishop F6 or E4?
Yeah, I'm wondering which first. I think maybe E4 first, and after knight, yeah, he goes for it. After knight to D4, he has bishop to... Or he can even play rook takes C4, but no, he goes for bishop F6. I think Levon has proven that pawn capturable right now.
Yeah, even though it wasn't the forced line, he managed to keep his knight alive. And if B6 had to be played, then I think black is just fine. With the knight hanging... Yeah. Okay, white wins back a pawn, but the knight will not be captured and the C4 pawn will still be hanging.
Yeah, likely headed for a draw, though, I think, with best play at this point. The biggest thing I'm surprised about in this game is the time management. I mean, Levon really picked it up this game, playing faster. And we'll see if that continues to be something he does as they head transition into the bullet. But right after this, everybody, remember, we have Chess 960. And okay. Chess 960. Levon Aronian will get white again, I believe, in the Chess 960 game, which guarantees him black in the bullet Chess 960 game, because he will have been white twice, from if I can remember the games accurately. So does black have any real winning chances here is the question. He's up a pawn, right? But white has no other weaknesses to speak of. The knight on F5 is established well for white. So, I mean... outside of time pressure mistakes, I think this probably should just be a draw. And is that rain behind you that we hear? Is that rain? Is it raining where you are?
No, not this time. Before there was a storm, but this time I'm okay.
Oh, okay. I keep thinking I hear some kind of something happening.
Yeah, I was just hoping for Levon to score because I think this 3-point difference is a bit too harsh for how well he played. So in this game, I'm rooting for him to score, and then the match would be more interesting.
Yeah, agreed. And he's trying to unwind and try to convert this pawn advantage. All right, king to g2. White has to be super careful here, because if black gets the knight to f3, that's a mating net. Yeah, white wants no part of that. So he takes, and now is he just going to win back the pawn, or black has f6 here? We'll see. Black might have f6, or okay, rook c5. Aronian is going to do his best to try to keep winning chances here, but it's getting closer and closer to seeming not possible. Though here he can move the bishop, yeah, and if rook takes e4, there would be f5, everybody, forking the rook and knight. Okay, well, he managed to get f5. This is strong, actually.
Yeah, now his chances are improving with the bishop on d4, rook d6 I like, but this rook endgame is still unpleasant with the e3 weak pawn.
Yeah, he actually has winning chances here.
Rook e5, that's a bit puzzling. I thought he wanted to go for rook c2, rook c3. g4, that's a good idea. This is how you should defend. Trying to liquidate, exchange pawns until there's just one pawn on the board left.
Yeah, but if you get the king and pawn ending, then you definitely have winning chances. Almost always, king and pawn ending offers better winning chances than a rook and pawn ending. He's trying his best. He's trying to work himself into a chance to win this as black. Okay, so are there any real winning chances here? He's thinking about it. Down on time, unfortunately for Aronian, right where he's been most of the match, and struggling, I think, to come up with ways to win this one.
Yeah, once again, it's 17 seconds left, and with the 2-second increment, this is not very promising.
Yeah, well, what's he going to do? Get himself way down on time? He needs to move. There you go. Okay, well, still shouldn't have any business losing, but he has gotten himself down on time. So we'll see how he tries to handle this. Maybe now he's just going to repeat. No, not done yet. Going to bring the king around. Try to go get the g-pawn, but no.
And now this is a draw.
Yeah, too many checks. Of course, was
drawish before as well, but he declined the draw and he's still trying.
Right. So if he trades rook, I was just going to say, can he trade rooks? Because now if takes, king f4, king up, and king f5, isn't he just losing?
He's calculating. That's what Jan wants.
I guess he'd have to play king f6. Okay, I think it...
Yeah, king f6 was a problem, and if king takes e4, king g5. But who's first?
I think that was actually... I think that was losing.
Oh my.
For black. I mean, Nepo didn't go for it, but he was queening with check. That is fascinating. Okay, like somebody have to check that analysis later, but something told me that was not right. But Aronian is trying to win. I mean, desperate to get a point back. He may end up losing it, right? I don't think so. I think he's going to get a draw. But being down on time, it might have been a better match strategy actually to just call it and move on to the Chess 960. But okay, we'll see. We'll see how this plays out. Maybe now they finally take a draw. Levon recognizing that he's tried a little too hard.
Yeah, it would be a good idea with 5 seconds on the clock to actually agree to it.
Yeah, and he does just that. So, there you go. He takes the draw, and we have a Chess 960 game, once again with Levon Aronian getting white, quickly playing the move g3, which makes sense. You almost always like to just open up these bishops as soon as you can in these Chess 960 games. But, But okay, this will be interesting. G6 and F4. I don't. Giving an evaluation of these is about as hard as playing them. You quickly have to try to assess some idea of getting a structure that you're comfortable with, without missing any blunders. Yeah, White aggressively plays E4, and I think if he can, he'll bring the knight out behind the E-pawn and maybe even castle kingside quickly. But here Black should maybe just take and then play knight F6 and develop with some sort of tempo and gain some time to get the pieces out. Looks like that's what Nepo's going to do.
Yeah, and where do you go with the rook? If you have to go back, did you gain anything with this? Rook E2 makes more sense. Trying to be smart so that you actually don't lose a tempo. And castle.
Right. Well, maybe you look like you don't lose a tempo, but I agree with you. It doesn't look like that, like White gained a ton with that. Though, okay, so White can put the bishop on B2, maybe A4 first, but White can put the bishop on B2 and then still try to get some sort of castles long.
This castling is still so puzzling to me in chess 960. I thought that you can only castle queenside in this position since the rook was on E8 in the initial position. Right. But no.
No. You can castle to either side of the board, yeah, as long as the king and rook haven't moved. And it is optically weird. Okay, interesting. The bishop comes to B7. Nepo's trying to be aggressive before White can get the king out of the center. Because if White captures here and he captures back, this queen is infiltrating very quickly on the diagonal. And Levon is agreed that this is critical. He stops to think for a moment. Decides he has to trade. But here comes queen H1. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, now this rook E2 wasn't that smart in the end.
Yeah, and there's several moves here for Black, including knight E4. Oh, no, not knight E4, because the queen is open. Yeah, that's what's one thing that's weird about chess 960 is you miss weird tactics. Yeah, so knight E4 not possible, but it does seem to be really, really risky right now. I think he'll play bishop A3. And if you're Aronian, you want to play bishop A3, queen to D3. Those are your next two moves, and then try to get castled long. So, if not for D6, you better believe he wanted to bring his queen out. And although, is knight takes G6 a move?
I don't like this D6 at all. I was going to say the E6 hanging knight is not looking good.
Well, you can't quite do it yet, but knight takes G6, H takes G6, and queen takes G6 with check. Certainly interesting, followed by castles long. That would have been really funny. And maybe White would have had an attack. Aronian decides it's unnecessary, but maybe he'll regret it. Look at that, knight to G4, and now you can't put the queen on any of these landmine squares. There's weird tactics coming with knight F2 check. I actually suddenly like Black's position. I wonder if Aronian should have gone for that, because he's going to lose his right to castle with knight F2 check and have to kind of move everything over by hand, try to bring the king to B2 after knight F2 check.
Queen to F3, you have to move the king. Then he can castle in a funny way, placing the king on B2 and then bringing the rook. But it doesn't feel that safe with the bishop on H8. I thought there might have been some knight D4 at some point if the king is on B2.
Yeah. Although now he's, other than the B3 pawn being a target on this open B file, he's sort of gotten out of the worst of it. And Nepo kind of shaking his head, maybe not thrilled with what his approach was. That's a good move, too. I like that move. If you can trade queens, I think the endgame is probably better for White, mainly because you suddenly notice how bad this A5 pawn is. That's a real problem, right?
She clearly not satisfied with this position.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely frustrated. Loses the A5 pawn and still has some chances. I mean, obviously Black has been more coordinated than White for some time now. The king and rook still completely undeveloped. But if you can play king C2, move the knight, and then run the A pawn, White has got an easily winning plan that's pretty straightforward. If this white knight comes to C6 and he starts running the A pawn, I think it's just over. That A pawn is just way too strong. Okay, so D5 is a nice move. He's actually trying to stop knight C6 because he opens up the idea of the rook coming up. I expect king to C2 from Aronian.
Yeah, and then he has to solve the problem of this a5 knight, probably with knight b7 heading towards c5, so that you can push the a pawn.
Yeah, maybe that's what Levon is thinking about right now, going knight to b7 first. I think both make sense, both king c2 and knight b7, and no, he goes knight c6. Interesting. Okay. A little surprised by White's approach, but there must have been more tactics coming with d4 and captures on c3 and maybe the rook coming down than we realized, because Levon felt like he needed to make some defensive measures there against the center pawns. The biggest issue again is, once again, time, right? 50 seconds currently the time advantage for Nepomniachtchi, and Aronian down on time is in trouble if it stays that way.
This check is unpleasant because you either open the bishop diagonal and create a passed pawn on e3.
Maybe he has knight e5 though. He's got knight e5 or d4. I think both of those moves are, like, if black takes with the pawn here, maybe he's got, okay, he ends up taking with the rook. I wonder if there was some way to go into a rook ending that Nepo didn't like. Takes with the rook. Now the a pawn is got to be on the agenda. As soon as you can, you want to start rushing that pawn.
Is he aiming for some kind of a repetition by giving check and attacking the d pawn? But I just don't think it's gonna work because of the a pawn.
I don't think so. Yeah, I think Levon would just give up that a pawn. I think as soon as these threats are done, this a pawn is going to start rushing.
Well, this looks lost. I thought that he would take back on e3 with the pawn and have some chances.
I like this move, knight e5. The only chance I think now for black is g5. Try to undermine it and not let it just transition into a rook ending where this pawn is just running up the board. But we've seen a crazy turnaround in chess 960 already, right? He goes for g5. That's what I expected. Okay, and here comes the push. He's just going to make the rook sacrifice itself.
Shout out to Jen. She's also here with us in the chat. Jen is going to commentate tomorrow on the Fabiano Caruana Hou Yifan match together with Dennis, so you should definitely tune into that match. It's going to start somewhat later because Yifan is going to play from Beijing, I believe. So you do some. What time it will be in China when they start the match?
It'll be 6 a.m. the next day.
Wow.
So we will be starting the match tomorrow at 3 p.m. Pacific time. That is Fabiano Caruana versus Hou Yifan. And me and Jen Shahadi will have the call, as you said. And it'll be 6 a.m. the following day in Beijing. So should be a fun one there. Hou Yifan, big underdog against Fabiano Caruana, but really excited to see that match. Okay, well, it looks like Levon is going to convert on this one, barring any unforeseen craziness. But yeah, knight a6 comes in. The queen is coming, and we have moved onto bullet, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, well, wow. I mean, that was some crazy 3-minute section of this match, Anna. I don't know that we've ever seen
a crazier game than this in chess 960. I don't know, but I loved it. It was so exciting.
It was so exciting. It was crazy. It was sort of marred by some of the earlier issues at the start of the time control. If you missed it, we had some connection problems for Levon Aronian, or he had some connection problems. Actually lost on time because of one game and connection problems, and then had to restart his PC because he was disconnected from the server, and suddenly we have a forfeit loss. So anyway, what matters is the score is a 2-game lead for Nepomniachtchi as we head into the 1-minute portion. But because we have to do that fast, but we owe a quick shout out to our sponsors, I just want to remind everybody what we're doing here. The Speed Chess Championship, and it is brought to you by Masterclass. So let's take a quick look at our Masterclass commercial that a lot of us have seen many times. Now maybe we'll provide commentary to it this time. The commercial that is starring Gary Kasparov and his Masterclass. I'm just kidding. We're not going to provide running commentary, but definitely consider checking it out.
Check. Chess is a game of unlimited beauty, but it's not just checks and attacks. You have to be creative. Let's count it. King g5, king c2, king f6, king b3, king b7, king c4, king d6, king b5, king c7, king a6. Boom. White lost, yes? Queen takes, then knight f5, and it's a double attack. So let's go back and see what's the next logical moves. Skewer and attraction. And it's mate. What an amazing mate. I've been thinking about a few ideas that I never used. The one I want to show, it's one of my favorite openings. It's not about winning or losing, but of course at the end of the day it's about winning or losing. I'm Garry Kasparov, and this is my masterclass.
And boom, white wins. Yes, as they say, that's as Garry Kasparov says. So I love that line. Boom, white wins. At the end of the day, it's not about winning or losing, but at the end of the day, it's about winning or losing. If anybody didn't see that tweet from Anish Giri, as you see there, lost to Wesley So, unfortunately for the Dutchman. One of the funniest tweets ever about Kasparov's return. But what we have here is, sorry, my teammates making jokes in chat that I don't want to read. What we have here is a quick look. Remind you, tomorrow is Fabiano Caruana versus Ho Yifan. You can see it on the right side of your screen there. The match that will feature the former women's world champion, still strongest women's player in the world, really bar none. Unless Judith Polgard comes out of retirement, it's really not close. So apparently, one reminder is that there's never actually been an upset in terms of seeding in the Speed Chess Championship so far. Last year, if you remember Magnus Carlsen playing Hikaru Nakamura, the favorite won in every match. And so that's kind of what we're seeing here. Nepomniachtchi is the favorite in terms of Blitz, even though in many people's eyes Aronian was the favorite. But without really any other further ado, let's jump back over to what's happening. I am getting set. The round has begun. We have 30 minutes now of bullet chess, which should be a ton of fun. And as everything is updated and set to go, checking with my team, we are back and ready to rock. The game has started. The clock has started ticking down. We have another one of these Ruy Lopez's that we've seen before already. It's going to be about bullet if Levon's going to come back in this match. We know he's frustrated, having lost a couple games in 3 minutes that he wishes he could have back, but the bottom line is this is still completely within striking distance, and even though, as Mike Klein told us, there's never been an upset in the Speed Chess Championship bracket history, the favorites have won every matchup. I think people would agree that that's kind of a stat that's just just waiting to be broken, because if those of you remember, Sasha Grishuk beat Levon Aronian last year in a match that also basically went to overtime. Anish Giri lost to Wesley So. Yes, Wesley So was favored, but that match was really Anish Giri's to win with 30 seconds left, and he found a way to kind of lose it. So I think we're waiting for an upset. An upset is bound to happen any day in the Speed Chess Championship. But what matters right now is it's a 2-game lead for Nepomniachtchi. As you can see, 10.5, 8.5. Time for Levon to turn on some bullet skills, or Nepo to show why he tried to prolong this match, as we saw him do in many games. He prolonged it to try to get to the bullet. I think Nepo thinks he's the favorite in bullet, and for good reason. He's up on time in this one and just up a clear pawn. I have no idea what happened in this game because I was talking about Ho Yifan's match tomorrow, but this just looks fantastic for white. And that knight on d5 is good. And the black king is open. No real chances for the g-file to become an issue. But bullet is bullet for a reason. Things happen fast. Blunders are made. Things change quickly. So we never want to call a bullet game until it's over. But this one looks really tough for Levon. I'm surprised there aren't tactics on the G-file already. Yeah, and Nepo says, I'm gonna force my way through on the G-file. Brings the rook up. He's preparing to put pieces here. And he actually finds that tactic, makes it work, and I think Levon will just resign. And so with that, we have a 3-game lead for Nepo. He gets the first game in bullet, so far showing why he felt he was the favorite in bullet, Anna, and really taking that one home.
I just wonder if Levon can somehow turn tables, because he seemed to be so confident and well prepared in the 5-minute portion. And since this connection incident happened to him, unfortunately, he wasn't the same.
Yeah, I agree. Although I do believe that, in all fairness to Nepomniachtchi, I don't think he's winning just because of that. I think Nepo has played faster. He's
That's
been
true.
up on time in the
Of course,
critical
yeah.
moments, and I think Levon has beaten himself certainly in a couple games. Whether it's beating himself by not having his best connection. You gotta secure that. That's part of the agreement with the players, and by beating himself by losing a couple winning positions. So I agree with you. I think that this match is closer than 3 games. I think Aronian is certainly going to be frustrated by those losses if it comes down to losing the match. But the truth is Nepo has played faster, and down on time a lot. Aronian has made mistakes under time pressure, and that's what happens in Blitz. So we'll see here.
You're right,
here we go.
Sorry. Sorry, I didn't hear you.
No, go ahead.
I was just saying that I think you were right that even though there was a disconnection, Nepomniachtchi has been very consistently playing fast from the very first games on. Even with 5-minute blitz games, he was like 2 minutes ahead on the clock all the time, not just in 1 or 2 games, but every game. So that's something that's paying off for him right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what I'm always waiting for as we get into the bullet portion here is what's going to happen when we start to get some blunders in bullet. I mean, right now, both players are still playing pretty good chess, and I don't expect them not to do that. But you always wait for blunders to happen in bullet. You see who kind of holds it together, has the better nerves. I like Aronian's position here. I love that pawn on c7, and I like the bishop pair. I don't really think that takes e2 is that big of a deal because black still has light square problems. But we'll see. Time is now getting closer to equal. Levon was up on time on this one, but now we're much closer to equal. 25 minutes left total in the match. This is going to come down to the wire, especially if Levon can get a couple wins. This match is not out of reach at all for Levon, despite being down 8.5, 11.5.
So how do you promote this c pawn? Because it's looking lovely on c7, but you need to somehow
He misses
undermine the blockade.
He misses bishop takes g3, though. Craziness. And
So this will
Nepo
allow a
kind
perpetual
of bobbing his head. I think he's just going to take a draw. I think.
sure.
But no.
No,
Levon, Nepo
we
wants
underestimated his objective for this game.
more. Where's the mate coming? It's coming on f1. That's where it's coming.
Not anymore. Look at that.
Not anymore, though. Can he just get a queen? Because if
He
queen
might be
e3
just
check, he has
regretting
king
not giving
Oh
perpetual.
no, he's just up a ton of pieces now. I mean, it's 2 queens.
Okay,
That's a lot of queens. The biggest issue
It is
is
a lot
time.
of queen.
Bishop c3 or queen c3, any of those moves were good. He blocks it. He's got plenty of time, but he doesn't have enough time on the... Oh, and he mouse slips. Ay, ay, ay.
No.
Whoa, wait a second. It's not over yet. He still has a mating net.
Did he do that on purpose then?
No, he didn't. He mouse slipped. You could see he leaned back in his chair, totally frustrated, but he's still up 1.5 million pieces somehow. Somehow
How did
he's
he
still
do that?
winning this game. That is insane. Insane. He trades queens, and Levon Aronian and Nepo laughs, and he says GG in the chat. He's like, okay, wow, that's crazy. Well, okay, how often do you see somebody mouse slip queen e2, Anna? Queen takes f2 was game over, right? And then he... Oh, wow. Okay, well, all that matters is we still have a close match. that was an exciting game, and now we have another Rui
That was a
Lopez.
thriller. And Nepomniachtchi not going for the perpetual check when it was a very good score for him in terms of the final result.
But I think he made the right choice. I mean, Levon, at one point he had 2 seconds on the clock with a 1 second increment, right? I mean, he was literally, and given that Levon has already lost the game on time, I'm impressed that he held his own there.
Yeah, I see, by the way, a tweet with hashtag #SpeedChess. You should use the hashtag. Eric Nielsen is saying that let's hope Levon has a hidden, from me at least, talent for bullet and make this match very exciting.
Yeah.
We
Well, we'll
don't
see.
know
No,
much
I mean,
about
I don't
his
remember
talents.
what was the score in the bullet portion between Grishik and Aronian last year. I know Michael hear me and look that up. I forget. I know Grishik, I think, was up by a game or so, but it was close. I don't remember what the I don't remember what the bullet score was, but I don't think Levon was outmatched in a way that we see, you know, Magnus outmatched Grishuk in their match in bullet, right? Or Hikaru Nakamura outmatches in bullet. I remember it was very close. So, so far it's 1-1 in the bullet, and we'll see how that holds up. But Nepo now back to being up on time. Levon nervous. He's kind of nervous, rubbing his head. I think he's, you know, trying to play as fast as he can. It's clearly not. He's not that comfortable in bullet. I think that's easy to say. He's not his favorite time control.
He might be playing bullet chess under a fake username. That happens often with elite players. I think that they don't want to reveal that they actually practice. At least he must have been practicing for the Speed Chess Championship.
Yep. Well, we know if you look up Nepomniachtchi's history, he was practicing for the Speed Chess Championship by losing to I think it was Zigalko. He was losing to some grandmaster on our site. Yeah, right before the stream. But he said he was just trying to, you know, throw Levon off his game and maybe lose a few games on purpose. So, all right, rook to c7. That's a strong move, and the 7th rank looks tricky for white. The queens will be traded, and then what happens? I guess the key is that if that bishop moves, g7 is a problem. That's the key. If that bishop moves, g7 is a problem. So he has to defend it, and but in doing so, I don't see a concrete follow through after that. Yeah, it looks like Aronian has kind of wiggled his way out of that pressure. He's got bishop e8 now, and he can okay. Even with the trade and knight f5 check, which I was expecting him to take and play knight f5 check. Who's better here?
Good question. I love the knight on e4, but the d5 pawn can fall. That's the only problem I see for white.
Yeah, but if the b2 pawn falls, I mean, here comes the a pawn running, and just letting the chat know we are always listening to your feedback, always trying to get better at everything, and I think I agree with you. Less analysis board. Let's focus on the action and the clock ticking away and what may. Okay, I wonder if he should have just sacked there. He may have gotten himself in trouble. No, he didn't. I thought Levon may have gotten himself in trouble, but no, he does find a way to wiggle his way out. Levon is going to strike back here, and with it, take the bullet portion, just gobbling up every pawn. And with it, he should go on to win this position pretty easily. Again, barring some sort of mouse slip or some other sort of blunder. This should be a pretty easy win for black, moving forward with the 2 pawns. How to do that now?
Oh, but now the problem is...
Ooh, he only has 5 seconds. What's happened there?
Yeah.
What's happened there? He actually is in trouble suddenly. What is going on? No, he still manages to win, actually, because this is still winning.
Yeah, you will trade those pawns, but the king is far away. The white king is cut on the f5.
Yeah, the white king is way too far, so it is easily winning. A nice frontal attack technique, right? Not exactly the way you expected to see, but if anybody has time to back up and see this bullet game, that transition by black to be in the correct position with the rook behind the pawn was pretty impressive. And anyway, you would be well served to back up and check out that rook ending, because that was pretty impressive by Aronian to win that with literally no time on the clock, Anna. That was awesome.
So now it's only a 1-point difference. That's getting exciting.
Yep.
Aronian winning 2-1 so far in the bullet.
Yeah, the tides are turning a little bit. Chess is not always a game of momentum, but bullet chess is a game of momentum, and the Speed Chess Championship often comes down to momentum. That's why you see players win games in a row. Other players have trouble letting go emotionally or psychologically of a previous loss. We saw Nepo win 5 games in a row already at some point in this match, and but now Levon has won a couple games in a row, and we'll see how that plays out with only 17 minutes left. I knew this was going to come down to the wire. We could never write the story, right? The drama is insane because Levon is not happy with how he got into this position, having a 3-game lead earlier in the match, for those of you just joining us. But what matters is it's going to be a close finish. It seems like we may be in store for a photo finish here.
They're going for that, and we appreciate that this fighting spirit is bringing in more and more fans to enjoy the game, that they have been putting on quite a show for 3 hours, already 2.5 hours. it's going to be 3 hours in total. And stay here, of course, until the very end, because we are going to interview the players.
That's right. I was wondering if this was the best idea to push e6. Obviously, Levon went for it, so who am I to judge? But it looks like that e6 pawn is going to fall at some point. The question is what will happen next. I think now white has a choice. Do I play h4 and try? Okay, and he does it right as I highlighted it, because I think if black doesn't go for this, then white's going to get an attack now with h5. Okay, he's basically saying if you play rook takes e6, he would have had rook takes c8. That was the idea.
Mm-hmm.
And with bishop takes e6, now the attack continues. And we do our best to try to understand this as they play faster and know more than we do. So we're lucky if we can highlight a move right before they play. But once that rook comes to e7, b7 is falling, and he's going to gobble it. Yeah, I think Aronian is in the driver's seat here. I don't know if he's going to be able to get a full point here, but I don't think white should lose this game, Anna.
It's a pawn up, weird pawns, of course, double pawns on the b file, and now the b2 pawn is falling, but he traded it for the a pawn, so this is a b passed pawn against a pair of bishops, but those bishops are not active, so this is just a nice position for white.
Yeah, and now there's all kinds of weirdness coming. I wonder if he almost had knight takes e5, g5 there. I think he had knight takes g5 and bishop e5 check, because on king to g8 he had bishop d6. So we're lucky when we can see tact. What?
That would have been very nice if he had sacrificed and win back the bishop on f8.
And I think that was there, but he didn't quite see it. So white is still in the driver's seat. Look at this plan, Anna. He's going to bring the knight to f2, and at some point the knight's going to come to g4. But Nepo says no, thank you. What's happening here? The rook is hanging on b7, everybody, because of bishop a6 check coming. He has to watch out. He sees it, but now he's in trouble. No, he bails out with knight f6 and the threat of mate on rook h7.
Wow.
This is crazy.
Bishop d3, king moves, at least you have the h7 square covered.
Oh, he does, yeah. Oh, he mates himself. Oh.
What? I thought he wanted to go to h2. What is this? No.
Oh, man. Big loss. Nepo strikes back. Wow.
Oh, my.
That was a big win, and look at that. He wins a big game, and he goes back to his English. Will he finish the match on an English kick? But that was the match going from being tied to Nepo being back up 2 games in a game that Levon Aronian was in the driver's seat. But that moment that we were analyzing, I want to back up because I feel confident that I was right there, and there was a winning tactic for white, and there was this knight takes g5 would have been winning on the spot with this move bishop e5 check. I guess obscode bishop's okay, hard to say he's winning, but all right, we have an English. Long story short, we have to focus on what's in front of us because we only have 14 minutes left before all is said and done.
Yeah, but stepping into mate was just unexpected from Levon Aronian. Biggest mistake of the match, and of course this mouse slip, but at least he won the game where he mouse slipped queen e2.
Yeah, that was hilarious. Yeah, I've never seen that.
Yeah, it's already on Twitter, don't worry, it's saved for the rest of humanity.
Yep. Crazy stuff. We have the knight on d4. Only 13 minutes left in the clock. Both players are just completely zoned in right now.
Yeah. How often do you see a position with so many pawns on the 7th rank, like c7, d7, e7, f7? That's looking hilarious.
Yeah. Here comes the knight to c5 or a5. Both are possible. Nepo's in the driver's seat in this game for sure. This is a tough position right now for black, and Aronian has to struggle to stay in this one after losing that last game. A 3-game lead, Anna, with what will probably end up being about 10 minutes left, could be almost decisive for Nepomniachtchi. So, it's not a must-win situation mathematically yet, but it's getting close to it. Nepomniachtchi is in the driver's seat, and Levon has to find some way to hold this game. At least draw. If Levon at least draws this game, he's doing okay.
Yeah, I see you guys are saying in the chat that Danny and I are supporting Levon, and that is not exactly true. We are supporting an equal score so that we see more chess. What happens in
no,
case of a
I don't.
tie?
I'm not supporting either player. I think that this has been an exciting match. I think sometimes emotionally you get a little bit attached to somebody when you see them frustrated. We knew Levon was upset about what happened earlier, and I think, yeah, you're right. Maybe that leads to a little bit of a human tendency to kind of want him to fight back. But nope. I honestly have no idea who I would rather see play Sergei Karyakin. I would rather see either player play Sergei Karyakin. So no rooting interest here. But he did unwind there. Levon found a way to kind of work his way back. He found a way to work his way back, and he actually won that pawn somehow. This still seems really weird, but that was impressive there. I don't know how Black got out of that. That was a bind. But the truth is,
C5, I like that. Oh, but it's pinned after.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm worried that it's pinned, but after Rook C6, okay, that fixes that problem, and now he can trade and go after the D4 pawn, but look for Nepo to get some chances against the king here. This is an exposed 8th rank and an exposed 7th rank, and that's super dangerous. In fact, here comes Rook takes E6. Whoa, what's going on with Rook E8 check? I have no idea what's going on here.
What is this?
There's Rook D1 check coming, but Levon has no time, and Nepo is using his time advantage smartly here. He knows that his chances are practical only, and that he has to find a way to flag his opponent. And he's trying to play fast, but Levon barely held on, got out of that. Nepo is smartly not going to just resign here, because he's got to make his opponent show some technique and win this, because every second off the total game clock right now favors the Russian. So this is...
this is going to be a very long game, and with that, Nepomniachtchi is buying himself time. So there will be a couple of more games, but the less games, the better for him with his 2-point lead.
Oh, and he blunders Rook A7 check, though. That was funny. I saw that coming with Levon kind of setting up the 7th rank there. So, wowzers, we're back to a one-game match with that win. Amazing. We have a Dutch.
Look at that.
We have a Dutch, our first Dutch. Why didn't he play the Staunton Gambit? Levon, don't you know that's the best? Play E4, buddy. Anyway, no, he's playing way too solid here. Aronian, you got to play more aggressive open. I mean, seriously, if a lot of time went off the clock here and he doesn't get a win, this is going to be a closed position. So we'll see what happens in this one. The Dutch, an interesting choice there by Nepo. These guys have really started mixing it up in the bullet portion. Tons of different openings.
Yeah, we were expecting this. I already thought that the 3-minute portion would see some offbeat openings, but now in the bullet, this is really happening. Look at that. The G pawn is marching. I like this. And then he castles. I like how he handled this opening. And Nepomniachtchi just going forward. So it's a 1-point advantage for Nepomniachtchi, but there will be a couple of more games until you see the time is running on the screen. And with bullet games, this is going very quick. Queen takes B7. Yeah, Levon has got a nice counterplay. I thought that Black was having a fine position with the bishop.
I think Black is having a fine position. I mean, White gave
good,
up those pawns. It seems weird.
Yeah, it's going to be a mess since the queen is active. He's down on material, but he's going to have very active pieces. And after trading the d5 bishop, which was a very important piece for Black, the c6 pawn will be weak, and the rook and the queen are already attacking the c6 pawn. So I think now Levon has good chances after bishop c4.
Well, what's amazing is this one of the first times we've ever seen... Whoa, how was that?
What?
Oh, that worked. Oh, duh, because the rook was pinned. We are just getting tired.
Okay.
I was freaking out.
I saw your expression, and I was like, what happened?
I know. What I was going to say is I agree that Levon has chances here. One of the first times he's actually up on time. But, okay, now that's becoming much more equal. Did he just... Oh, he just blundered that pawn. You could see him kind of curse himself there. I saw Levon sort of whisper something there inappropriate. Whisper something inappropriate. He was not happy with that. Okay. Nepo guards the 6th rank. He doesn't want there to be any kind of mating net. But watch this king march from... Oh, I thought he was going to play king f3 and try to bring the king up. But no, he goes for something else. Oh, he does go back to this, and after the 6th rank opens up, Black has to be really careful about ideas of this. Whoa, what an interesting move. He's sacrificing his way through the
because
walls.
of rook h1, it would have been beautiful.
Yeah.
H takes, rook h1 check.
It may still be beautiful. He's going to get knight takes h6, and then he's got an attack, and the knight's coming around to f6, and things are getting... he could have even maybe just taken that pawn. Levon could have, I think, just taken the pawn on f4 immediately, but he didn't. He may regret that. Oh, wow. He wins the exchange. But is it enough?
Yeah.
Is it enough to win? I have no idea.
Well, he still has the g-pawn, at least.
Is it enough to win here? Nepo struggling to hold. He knows this is a huge game, but Levon only has a few seconds. But he blundered his bishop. Rook d6 check won the bishop, and he still doesn't see it. They're just missing rook takes d6. They're just missing moves at this point. Both players tired. The rook was just... The bishop was just hanging there. Now he finds a way to get the rook behind the pawn. But he blunders. What in the world? Rook e7 check?
What is going on? And Levon was about to lose on time. I thought that Nepomniachtchi was
He just had no time. Wow, maybe that was poetic justice to have a draw there. But I think Levon really let one slip.
What a thriller, this game.
I mean, he was just winning in several moments there. Levon just winning on the spot, and then lets it slip. Nepo holds on.
And now we see the Scotch with the d6 setup, which has more, at least gives more chances for Black. If you play with d5, then it's usually, if White wants, you can just go for a theoretical draw position.
Wow, it's fast. These games are so interesting with the different blunders. And I keep wanting to go back to the previous game, and I have to hold back from doing it. I want to go back and be like, what? Like, how did he do that? Like, rook d6 check was just winning the bishop for like 3 moves, right? At least 2 moves. It was just over in 1, and we would have had a tied match. But Nepo holds on, and he's really in the driver's seat now. He's up a game, 5 minutes to go. If he wins this game, I think Nepomniachtchi's going to move on. And he is white, and it's currently I think he's doing just fine in the Scotch. So he gobbles up the a5 pawn. That makes sense, I think, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, he did go for it, and now rook b1. What is this position?
Well, yeah, if he took on b4, the knight was hanging on a5. So after the queen moves now, I think we're going to get a trade. Probably the b pawn will fall for the a4 pawn at some point here. Levon pausing to think about it, but that's been his weakness in today's match, if anything, has been his time trouble. Nepo leaning back in his gamer's chair there. That's why they build those things. Those things are built for comfort, built for long-term comfort.
Not like our stools, Danny.
Not like our stools, not like our backless stools as we suffer here.
Knight e3 and rook takes a5. All right, material is disappearing from the board.
This is weird. It's weird. I don't know what's going on. Now all of a sudden white has a mating attack. Things have switched. He's got to play g6, but is queen h6 or queen to c3 almost lights out here? I mean, queen to c3, how do you guard the mate?
I don't think you can. If queen h6, queen b2 is still possible, but queen c3, there's no defense.
Yeah, he finds it. Okay, f6 is the only move, but super dangerous for Black. Levon is barely holding currently. Aronian is barely holding. Queen to d6, only move, right? Finds a way to not get mated somehow and not lose on time, but Aronian is really up against the wall here. As time ticks away, if Nepo can put this game away, you're basically looking at a mathematical impossibility because of the amount of time it takes. So if Nepo puts this game away, as we said, I predict him to win this match. Did he just blunder? He did. Levon blunders and resigns?
No, he lost on time. What happened?
Oh, he
What
lost
was
on
the last
time.
move?
Yeah,
28
Levon was just down on
seconds,
time.
lost
Yeah,
on
he just.
time.
I forgot he had almost no time. Yeah.
Whoa,
I think that might be. I mean,
the
with the
decisive
Chess
game.
960 game, remember Chess 960 happens after regulation, so Levon now has to win every game. He has to win this game and the Chess 960 game to tie the match. So the match can still be tied. It is not over yet, but Aronian is up against the wall, currently having to win this game. I don't know that we've ever had such high drama. I mean, this has been back and forth, been totally nuts, and not necessarily the highest quality chess because it's been back and forth. We've had a lot of blunders under time pressure, but nobody cares about that. It's been exciting.
Yeah, I guess that's why we love bullet chess, because there are so many mistakes and it's super exciting. You never know who is going to win, even if he is material up, he might lose. And yeah, this is such a balanced match. But now with 2 points up, I think Nepomniachtchi is going to advance and play Sergei Karyakin in the next round. Actually, they are good friends, and the three of them are good friends. We have seen some pictures from Mike. The three of them hanging out together in St. Louis.
You're talking
Probably
about
discussing Speed Chess Championship.
Nepo, Karyakin, and Aronian?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, this one doesn't look... it looks totally unclear, but I mean, Aronian would have to win this, and then he would have to win as black in the Chess 960 game, which is what will happen right after this. Even if Nepomniachtchi wins and sort of secures his advancement, there will still be a Chess 960 game. But obviously, I think everybody at this point, even the biggest Nepomniachtchi fans, have to be in favor of the drama. But look at this. The problem with this position for Aronian is there's like no attack, right? You're pushing all these pieces, but where's the actual attack here? I don't know.
Yeah, and with the queens coming off of the board, you can't really expect this to be good news.
Yeah, bishop e7 will come, and then he has to back up the queen, which is just
sad. On h2, very sad.
Far from desirable there. Time is ticking, and we are about to hit the end of regulation, which makes this game, as what we already knew it was, a literal must-win for white, or the match is over. And it looks like Aronian is going down. I mean, he's worse in this position. The a2 pawn is a monster. I don't know what's happening on bishop c3 at some point here, but it's going to happen. Wait, what?
He also then gave up the piece. What's
he gave up the
going on?
piece.
Okay, he just counted on bishop c3, winning the rook, but was this necessary?
Yeah, suddenly things have changed massively. He's going to get 2 pieces for the rook. I wondered why he didn't just take a2 and then take c6, by the way, but okay. I thought that was a better way to get the 2 pieces for the rook transition, but perhaps not. Okay, but Levon can't take the draw. He has to know that. He knows that. He backs up. He comes up to g3. That's not his favorite thing to do with a king, but he had to. He had no choice. Queen takes g4 was just winning for white. He had queen takes g4. Oh, he can still play queen g4. I don't know why not playing queen g4. Trying to trade queens if you have the 2 pieces. But Levon has found a way to work his way back into this as long as he doesn't get mated. This is insane. He's going to lose on time.
Again?
He's going to lose on time.
He's
It
lagging.
looks like he's on his way to losing on time. I don't think so. I think he's just down on time.
Maybe that's the case, but it seems that he's got problems with the
Some
clock
sort
all
of
the
slow
time.
internet. Yeah, look at that. Nepo queens trying to win. Nepo pulling out all the bullet tricks, and he does, and he wins
won
on time. Oh my gosh. Wow.
That's it. It's over. Nepomniachtchi wins.
It's over.
this
Nepomniachtchi
battle
wins.
of today.
Oh my gosh. That was insane. That was dirty. Honestly, that was
Promoting.
bullet tricks at their best. Nepomniachtchi complete, but we've seen him do that a couple times in the match today. Just like take full advantage of his opponent's clock.
True. It seems that he really knows how to play in bullet chess, so he's a very experienced bullet player. Sometimes these moves, for us, they don't really look just or fair, but on the other hand, in bullet chess, it happens.
Wow. That was amazing. The promotion was so dirty. It was crazy. That was all right. Well, obviously we have the Chess 960 portion still on the agenda here as we look at the score. But
it does not affect who will advance, but it will affect the prize money that Levon Aronian receives for playing today.
Right, it does affect prize. Yeah, but at this point, I think.
He doesn't really care, I guess.
It's less relevant to the players than of course moving on. And Nepomniachtchi has done just that. So as we check on the bracket here, my bracket is probably not updated just yet. But no, it is not. But we know that Nepomniachtchi will be moving on. As you see there, the 7th seed will be playing Sergei Karyakin. Amazing stuff. We will obviously have interviews right after this and talk to the players. We know that it'll be upsetting for Levon, who I know personally from talking to him while I was in St. Louis there for a couple of days, really wanted to move on after losing a super close match last year to Sasha Grishuk. But he goes down again in a super close match to Nepomniachtchi. A match that, he really seemed to play the better chess, right? But as far as the better online chess skills and the blitz skills when it really mattered most and time management, Nepo was better today, Anna.
Yeah, he was, and he really played fast chess from the very beginning, even if it was not perfect quality. But in blitz, you can't really be perfect, and maybe that was what Levon was missing, that he wanted to play too well. He did play better than Nepomniachtchi in those games, but then his time usage was not ideal at all.
And he did end up winning the Chess 960 game. Amazing stuff. If he had won that game without losing on time, he probably would be. That would have been tying the match right there. Pretty amazing attack right there, but we didn't focus a lot on it. But fans should definitely check out that game. But let's see if we have the players here, if they're able to take a few moments to talk with us here, and we will welcome back both Levon and Jan. If you guys can hear us, let us know.
Yeah, I can.
Levon, are you there?
Yeah. All
right. Well, first of all, super exciting match. We know it was just I don't know if anybody has any headphones. I wonder whose connection that is. But Levon, I know is super disappointing, obviously, with what happened there with the disconnection, with the poor moment of internet there. So obviously super disappointing to see the match go down that way. But how did you feel overall about your play? And it seemed like you were down on time kind of probably more than you would like, that a few of these games didn't go your way because of the time scramble. Would you say that's a fair assessment of how some of those games?
I think I was playing pretty well up to a point when you guys forfeited me, and then it went down worse from there. I mean, I was already not really enjoying myself, but it was fun in the end of the day.
Well, we are disappointed to obviously that position was terrible, and unfortunately that's how the online rules are set up to work. But either way, it's disappointing. We thank you for the hard-fought match. Jan, you ended up winning a super close match. You seemed to just knew what you were doing in the time scramble there. Obviously, did you know how close the match was when you played that promotion trick and kind of beat Levon on time there in that last game?
Well, I mean, I saw the score, and I believe I was something like +2 at that moment, so I should have. I mean, it was better than the Nicole score, so I believe. Well, the match was very, very tough. I mean, especially because of the jet lag. But I mean, okay, we traveled from St. Louis to me to Moscow, Levon to everyone. We traveled by one flight. So we were in absolutely same conditions, and I mean, of course, it's a pity that so much was decided in some flagging battle. But I mean, and also it's a pity that Levon had some troubles with internet, because I mean it was an equal score at that moment, I believe, and this really it was really bad. I mean for match overall. It wasn't balanced, but I mean, Levon is a great fighter, and I mean, of course, I believe it was far from what Russ can do in Blitz, but I mean, all the circumstances and so on.
Absolutely. Anna, do you have any other questions?
Sure. But I think I hear myself as well. I don't know if it's the earphones. Levon, I was going to ask you, I know that you must be very disappointed by this match, but 2017 has been such a great year for you. You've been every super tournament that you participate in. And I heard that on the 30th of September, it's going to be yet another glorious event for you. Can you tell us about that?
Well, I mean, yeah, we're gonna have a wedding ceremony in Yerevan, so.
Oh, I didn't know that. Congratulations. All right, is that breaking news, Anna? Were we supposed to reveal that?
I think it's not a secret, and I really believe that 2017 has been the year of Levon Aronian. We have seen you winning every important super tournament, and we wish you the best of luck for the World Cup as well. As well to you, Jan, who you will go to Tbilisi as well, I believe. And to you, I wanted to ask about esports. Since you follow Dota 2, you play yourself, I believe, and Hearthstone. How do you see those competitions? They have a huge number of viewership, huge prize funds. And what Danny and the Chess.com team is trying to do now with the Speed Chess Championship is a similar idea, to make chess an e-sport. Do you see that chess could go in this direction? More tournaments could follow?
Yeah, well, anyway, chess will, chess remains chess. That's clear. And,
are you saying chess isn't as exciting as Hearthstone? Is that what you're saying?
What?
Are you saying chess isn't as exciting as Hearthstone?
I mean, it's some different stuff because I'm good in chess and bad in Hearthstone. Maybe I'm bad in chess too, but I mean, at least if we compare, I'm better, yeah? Well, and I think it's clear that it's a good idea, to stream chess online, like do it on Twitch TV or on YouTube and so on and so on. And I don't believe we can quickly reach, the same number of viewers here, like the same, So it was like 5 million or even 10 millions watching the finals of Dota 2 International, 2 weeks ago. And I mean, okay, I believe we would be happy if we can find, at least 1 million. But I mean, we should work. We have some work to do.
Right. Well, want to just say again, I mean, we had a few more specific chess questions too, but overall this was such a kind of an emotional roller coaster and such a close match.
That's a bad idea because it was nothing connected to chess, I believe.
I think it was.
At least for me, after half an hour, I was completely down and I just couldn't see what's going on.
Yeah, well, we appreciate both you guys. We know it's late there, and obviously, Levon, we know this was not the way we wanted this match to go, and we appreciate you being a gentleman and sticking around. So we're sorry about that, but you know what? This was a super hard fought match. You guys had the fans on the edge of their seat. The chess drama was real. And Nepo, congratulations on moving on to the next round. You will be facing your countryman Sergei Karyakin in round 2. Should be exciting, right? How do you think you stack up against Sergei in a blitz match like this?
Well, I have no idea, so it depends on when will it be held.
Well, it's in October or something. I forget when the next round is.
So there is a lot of time before, but I mean, once again, it would be very intense match. But still, I believe that I have got, due to these pairings, I've got one of the most strongest players in Blitz overall. But Levon just proved it brilliantly, a few days ago in St. Louis. So I wasn't really happy with my pairing in the first round, and the second round pairing is not really any better.
Well, but I think a lot of
I will fight. I will try to do my best.
Right. Well, it only gets tougher from here. Yep, as you said. Congratulations, though, as you will face Sergei Karyakin. Levon, as well. Again, thank you so much for doing this, and thank you both for a great post match interview. And hope to have you next year, Levon and Nepo. Congratulations in the next round, and we will see you in October.
Thank you. See ya.